Chapter 1829. Her heart aches for the silver simultaneously. Rumors circulated that Lord Xiao had issued another decree. Any oversights during the municipal investigations were to be reported to the government office for re-registration. A surprise inspection was slated in a few days, and failure to comply would not be taken lightly. At the mention of this, countless households trembled with fear. Overnight, they scrambled to gather the required funds and surreptitiously re-registered at the government office. Coincidentally encountering acquaintances, they exchanged knowing nods, silently acknowledging the shared predicament. It was as though they were merely strolling through the government office, yet everyone was keenly aware of each other's presence. But that was a concern for another time. Meanwhile, the missive from the two old masters of the Fan family landed in the hands of old Lady Fan, igniting her ire. 9,100 taels. 9,100 taels. Lord Xiao must have a penchant for wealth. Those two sons of mine are utterly useless. They're in a panic over such a trifling matter. Fan Ruyan's distress deepened upon hearing the contents of the letter. Her heart ached at the thought of parting with the silver. Mother, we can't surrender the silver so readily. It's a disgrace to our Fan family. How will we ever hold our heads high in An's province? Nearly 10,000 taels of silver was no trifling amount. Old Lady Fan's lip curled in disdain. Indeed it isn't. She was well versed in the art of negotiation. Given the exorbitant demand, she intended to haggle fiercely. At most, her sons would be confined to the government office for a mere 500 meters. She doubted Lord Prefect would dare to take further action against them. Tomorrow, she would dispatch the butler to negotiate €1. First Madame Fan, and second Mrs. Fan grew agitated. They couldn't contain their frustration upon hearing old Lady Fan's plan. She felt no remorse, but they certainly did. What kind of establishment was the state office? To even consider subjecting their sons to imprisonment there. Even if they weren't subjected to hardship, the stigma of being incarcerated in the state office was unbearable. Accustomed to a life of luxury with plush beds and soft pillows, could they possibly sleep and eat well in such a place? Is that any place for people? They lamented. Were they so oblivious to the impact on their reputation in the future? With tearful pleas, they agreed to bring their children, daughters-in-law, and grandchildren to old Lady Fan, hoping to sway her with their collective anguish. No matter what, they had to quickly bring them back. They could not ignore them like this. Fan Ruyan couldn't help but interject. Sister-in-law, second sister-in-law, let's not stir up trouble. Lord Xiao won't dare to make things difficult for us. Even if he keeps them there, they'll surely be treated differently. 9,100 taels of silver is not a trifling sum. Surrendering it so easily would only whet Lord Xiao's appetite. Wouldn't our Fan family lose face? We must negotiate. Why not foot the bill yourselves, sister-in-law and second sister-in-law? Second Mrs. Fan exploded in anger, retorting. What nonsense are you spouting? Why should we pay? Isn't this an issue that concerns us all? Your own blood brother is the one apprehended by the authorities. Your words are utterly disappointing. Fan Ruyan, equally incensed, shot back. The silver belongs to us all. You can't squander it so recklessly. Second sister-in-law, you're too hesitant to part with the silver for second brother's sake. What more is there to say? You. Mother. First Madame Fan intervened, her tone frosty. This silver is meant for taxes and fines. Isn't it a family matter? We can provide the funds, but we can't let them go for naught. Isn't this blatant coercion? Mother, he's your own son. Chapter 1830. Let's go together. If you're unwilling to retrieve them, then so be it. Why don't we all go to the government office and stay together with them? Sister-in-law, I'll have to rely on you to manage the household. Both families harbored resentment towards this woman who married into the family, yet received preferential treatment from the old lady. She seemed more like a true member of the Fan family than they did. Fan Ruyan felt slighted by the implication, but chose to remain silent, attributing it to envy. She offered only a cold smile in response. First Madame Fan said nothing further, leading her family to depart. Second Mrs. Fan swiftly followed suit, declaring, Sister-in-law, we'll accompany you. Let's go together. Very well. How dare you? Old Lady Fan erupted in fury, slamming her hand on the tea table. Are you both plotting rebellion? Second Mrs. Fan defended. Mother, why can't we stand together as a family in times of trouble? It may alleviate some of old master's embarrassment. At the very least, we can share in the burden. First Madam Fan remained silent, though she silently concurred with the sentiment. Old Lady Fan glared at them, her gaze sharp with indignation. She sensed their determination. Furious, Old Lady Fan staggered backward. They were all in open rebellion, but she couldn't possibly allow them to proceed. It would be a complete loss of face for the Fan family. If you're so concerned about losing face, then leave. Old Lady Fan barked furiously. With a scornful sneer, she declared, I'll go myself. Let's see if that Lord Prefect dares to detain me too. First Madam Fan and Second Mrs. Fan exchanged a knowing glance and nodded in agreement. They didn't want to relinquish the silver without a fight, but the humiliation was unbearable. Would Lord Xiao even deign to speak reasonably? Would he negotiate with them? He had already subjected them to such humiliation. It was intolerable. If Old Lady Fan personally intervened, Lord Xiao wouldn't dare risk the responsibility if she fell ill or suffered any discomfort while in the office. He wouldn't dare allow such a scenario to unfold. Old Lady Fan's heart skipped a beat as she considered the proposal. It struck her as a brilliant idea. Of course, she wanted to accompany her two daughters-in-law. If she didn't assert her authority now, when would she? Prepare the carriage. I'll leave immediately. However, she deemed it unnecessary for her daughters-in-law to accompany her. As the matriarch of the Fan family, she needed to retain some semblance of dignity. Unlike them, she couldn't afford to compromise her standing. Before they could act, the housekeeper rushed in. Old Lady Fan, First Madam, Second Mrs. Fan Mrs. by Madam Xiao has arrived. What? Everyone was taken aback. Fan Rian sneered. What audacity! What is she doing here? When the prefect's wife paid a visit, none dared to refuse her. Old Lady Fan instructed the juniors to depart, leaving only her two daughters-in-law and Fan Rian. She sneered. Very well, let's see what she has to say. Bring her in. The women of the Fan family awaited her arrival with simmering resentment. Xiao Xian ushered Li Xia and Kai Wei into the room, while Yi stood guard outside the door. Typically, male servants weren't permitted in the backyard. But Yi's intimidating glare dared anyone to challenge him. First Madam Fan and Second Mrs. Fan rose to greet Xiao Xian, mindful that their husbands were still detained. Fan Rian shot a disdainful glance at Xiao Xian, her lips curling into a sneer. Old Lady Fan, asserting her seniority, remained seated, unwilling to welcome her. Chapter 1831. Xiao Xian's visit. In truth, Old Lady Fan's demeanor was frosty. As Xiao Xian took her seat, Old Lady Fan fixed her with a sneer. Madam Xiao, what brings you here to detain my two sons? Xiao Xian maintained a composed smile. Didn't Old Master Fan correspond with us, old lady? He elucidated the situation thoroughly. Our lord has shown leniency by imposing a mere 1,000 taels of silver as punishment. However, anticipating any misconceptions, I've come to clarify matters. She extended a small token. This is a gesture of our lord's goodwill. Fan Rian couldn't resist interjecting. Madam Xiao, you're correct. Our family's finances aren't bottomless. Isn't demanding nearly 10,000 taels a bit excessive? I speak plainly, Madam Xiao, please don't take offense. Indeed, Madam Xiao, Second Mrs. Fan chimed in. Let's resolve this matter amicably. There's nothing insurmountable, is there? The Fan family is renowned in An's province. Lord Xiao's leniency grants us face, and naturally, the Fan family reciprocates. The implication was clear. In the future, the Fan family would collaborate with Lord Xiao's governance, ready to assist whenever he required their aid. First Madam Fan, wary of Fan Rian's potential arrogance, intervened with a smile. Second Mrs. Fan quickly echoed her agreement, eager to avoid conflict. Both women harbored a fear of the old lady and her daughter, especially Fan Rian. Her domineering nature had strained her relationship with her husband to the point where he seemed like a distant stranger. She couldn't bear to see others thrive, and her eccentric behavior extended even to her own family. Old Lady Fan huffed in disapproval, shooting a cold glance at her daughters-in-law, but refrained from speaking. In public, she understood the importance of saving face. However, Qiao Xian remained unmoved. She wasn't there to negotiate but to deliver a warning. Mrs. Fan, you seem to have misunderstood. Qiao Xian maintained her calm demeanor. I believe there's little to discuss, correct? My lord has already displayed clemency. Old Lady Fan seethed with anger. Detaining her isn't letting her off. Qiao Xian met her gaze squarely. Isn't it? The Fan family concealed the truth, and according to the law, you should face fines exceeding 2,000 taels. Yet, our lord only demands 1,000 taels. Isn't that an act of mercy? But even if we're required to pay, shouldn't he release our people from the government office? Old Lady Fan countered. We cannot release them without the full payment, as dictated by the laws of Great Qin. Qiao Xian calmly stated, her smile unwavering. First, Madam Fan, if you doubt my words, feel free to verify them. We've only detained 2 old masters today. If the Fan family is truly reluctant to pay, our lord deems it reasonable. However, we must thoroughly investigate this matter. Anyone involved must report to the government office for questioning. Farm stewards, mansion housekeepers, old Master Fan's trusted aides, Madam Fan's household staff, and so forth. No one will be exempt. I believe a thorough inquiry will shed light on this matter. The members of the Fan family were all speechless. Chapter 1832. A bright threat. She was poised to upheave the entire Fan clan. Old Lady Fan nearly erupted with fury. Rising to her feet, she sneered. If that's the case, why don't you start with me, Madam Xiao? Why don't you take me back to court? No need for that. Qiao Xian replied with a gracious wave of her hand. You're too elderly for such proceedings. You can attend to your children. However, Mrs. Bai must accompany us. Why should I? Fan Ruyan erupted in anger. I fail to see how this is my concern. Qiao Xian was taken aback. Aren't you a member of the Fan family? Fan Ruyan flushed with embarrassment. Of course I am. Madam Xiao, don't sow discord. But why should I be involved in this? Exactly. Qiao Xian maintained her smile. Since the Fan family disputes this matter, our lord must conduct a thorough interrogation, with all family members present to cooperate. You're no exception. Indeed. Old Lady Fan, you needn't trouble yourself. After all, you're elderly, and our lord is compassionate. Fan Ruyan seethed with speechless anger. First Madam Fan and second Mrs. Fan exchanged a glance, finding solace in Madam Xiao's words. For some inexplicable reason, Old Lady Fan, capitalizing on her seniority, sneered defiantly. As the head of the Fan family, it's only fitting for me to attend the government office. That won't be necessary. Qiao Xian replied calmly, showing no haste. Old Lady Fan, all you need to do is pay the sum. Insisting on attending could lead to complications. What if you encounter discomfort or illness? It would create unnecessary trouble. Then, if first Old Master Fan and second Old Master Fan were deemed unfilial, you'd have to escalate such a trivial matter to court. Our Great Qin does not tolerate unfilial behavior. Our lord will ensure they are duly punished. Qiao Xian asserted firmly. Old Lady Fan, already formidable in her own right, was momentarily taken aback by Qiao Xian's audacity. Fan Ruyan's eyes widened in disbelief. Had her understanding of the world been so limited? Could truth be distorted to such an extent? However, Qiao Xian remained composed, unfazed by their reactions. In essence, once the payment was made, all would be resolved. Otherwise, the Fan family would soon discover whether they could afford the consequences. Lord Xiao was resolute and would not relent. Both she and Xiao Yunduan had anticipated Old Lady Fan's obstinance, recognizing the possibility that she might exploit her seniority to evade consequences. If she were to claim discomfort or illness at court, Xiao Yunduan's hands would be tied. Hence, preventing her departure from the Fan family was their only recourse. As an elderly woman, she was shielded from interference by the deputy prefect, scribes, or constables. No one would dare lay a hand on her, except for Qiao Xian. Qiao Xian, being the prefect's wife, held a unique position. Old Lady Fan was restrained in her presence. As women, Xiao Xian had the audacity to take action where others could not. If Xiao Xian could simply elucidate the situation, Old Lady Fan would realize she had no recourse. Feeling utterly despondent, Old Lady Fan was on the verge of exploding. She had never encountered such blatant intimidation before. Lord Xiao's obstinacy was exasperating, and his wife proved to be equally troublesome. Her daughter's warnings seemed all too prescient now. Despite her hardened exterior, Old Lady Fan couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy for her son. Unaware of Xiao Xian's jest, she fixated on her with a venomous glare. Then waved the 1,000 tael fine. Well, make amends. It's not that we refused to pay, but your officials were negligent. You can't hold us accountable. Xiao Xian declined the banknotes, instead instructing the Fan family's housekeeper to take them to the prefectural office and bring back the 2 elder Fan masters. I've come here today to remind you and the ladies to clarify this matter to them. It wasn't right for me to accept the money. We must distinguish between personal and public affairs. Old Lady Fan and the others were left speechless. After all that had been said, now she was talking about distinctions between public and private matters. Desperate for Xiao Xian to leave, Old Lady Fan instructed the housekeeper to proceed to the court. As soon as the housekeeper departed, Xiao Xian rose with a smile and took her leave. Upon returning to the government office, Xiao Yunduan had already retired to his chambers. He greeted her with a smile, remarking, "If you hadn't returned, I was planning to fetch you from the Fan family myself." Old Lady Fan was truly obstinate. His wife had only just returned after some time. Chapter 1834. Moving out. Xiao Xian retorted sharply, "I am the prefect's wife, and the Fan family poses no threat to me." With the Fan family's affairs settled, Xiao Yunduan instructed his men to monitor Deputy Prefect Guan, and urged him to vacate the premises. The western courtyard was thrown into disarray. Mrs. Guan's cries and shouts echoed, her piercing voice reaching even the eastern courtyard. Yet she dared not confront Xiao Xian there, whether out of fear or caution, perhaps warned by Deputy Prefect Guan. Ignoring the occasional curses hurled her way, Xiao Xian remained steadfast as long as she didn't give chase. Given Deputy Prefect Guan's dismissal, it was only natural for him to relocate from the government office's premises. There was no other choice. In the western courtyard, Mrs. Guan was devastated. Despite her prolonged tears, she couldn't find solace. It felt surreal, as if she had been cast into a nightmare. Was she no longer the deputy prefect's wife? Had her husband been reduced to a mere scribe? Setting aside the substantial disparity in income between the deputy prefect's annual salary of 200 taels of silver and a scribe's meager less than 30 taels, her social status had plummeted. How would she ever face society again? Initially refusing to budge, Mrs. Guan had regarded this place as her sanctuary, having resided here for so many years. However, the bailiff's ultimatum to vacate within 3 days or face expulsion by Lord Xiao left her seething with anger and resentment, prompting her to reluctantly order the packing of her belongings. Simultaneously, she dispatched people to organize the house. In addition to their current residence in An's province, they possessed another courtyard. It was neither grandiose nor modest, but sufficient for their family's needs. Yet, they seethed with indignation. Even if you haven't contributed lately, your past efforts speak volumes, old master. You've dedicated so much to An's province. How can Lord Xiao dismiss you so callously? It seems he's reluctant to admit his failure to shake An's province to its core and incite widespread panic. You've served as deputy prefect for a decade. What transgression warranted your expulsion? As Mrs. Guan continued, her despondency deepened. She exclaimed furiously, "I refuse to leave. I won't budge an inch. Let's see if they have the gall to forcibly eject us. If they dare lay a hand on my possessions, I'll challenge their authority. Is there no law for princes, kings, or rulers? Initially, Mrs. Guan had hoped to remain in the eastern courtyard, but now even the western courtyard was off limits. How could she not be furious? Deputy Prefect Guan glanced at her, his smile tinged with coldness. as he recounted the ordeal with the Fan family. "You're well aware of old lady Fan's character, aren't you? She won't yield an inch to the Xiao couple. Do you honestly believe we stand a chance?" Mrs. Guan was left speechless. "Don't let anger consume you." Deputy Prefect Guan sighed wearily, rubbing his tired forehead. His cold eyes betrayed no emotion. "Just observe. This is merely a setback. We may yet find an opportunity to turn the tide." Mrs. Guan sneered, her teeth clenched. "Fine, I'll heed old master's advice. Anne's province operates by its own rules. Let's see how it all unfolds in the end." Less than 3 days later, on the second day, Deputy Prefect Guan's family vacated their residence. Mrs. Guan's disdain for Xiao Yinduan was palpable. She stripped the house bare of anything movable, leaving not a single curtain behind. She even instructed the servants to uproot numerous flowers and trees from the garden, claiming she had planted them herself. Since she was leaving, she insisted on taking them along. The once lush garden was now a chaotic scene of upturned soil, broken branches, and scattered leaves, a testament to Mrs. Guan's spiteful departure. Chapter 1835. The opportunity has finally come. Qiao Xian remained silent, fully aware that she lacked the capability to overhaul the entire garden. But in truth, it hardly mattered. Her intention was to revamp the garden entirely. She envisioned adding more strawberry patches in one corner, alongside dragon fruit, lychee, longan, cherry, passion fruit, lemon, and various other fruit trees. Her plan was to plant at least 2 of each, ensuring an abundance of fresh fruits. As Deputy Prefect Guan's family departed, the family of Jia Heming promptly moved in. Both Mrs. Jia and Mrs. Guan harbored dreams they never thought would materialize. Residing in the government office's backyard. On the day of their arrival, Mrs. Jia paid a visit to Qiao Xian at the eastern courtyard. Her demeanor exuded humility without veering into flattery, making everyone feel at ease. Qiao Xian found this unexpected. Mrs. Jia, wife of Jia Heming, proved to be a woman of virtue, far surpassing Mrs. Guan. Jia Heming himself was elated. He had longed to demonstrate his abilities and achieve something noteworthy. Yet, each prefect lord had treated this land as temporary, fixating on departing as swiftly as possible. Naturally, none cared about leaving a lasting impact. As time wore on, Jia Heming grew increasingly disheartened. Though he managed to eke out a living, he remained somewhat out of sync with the others, thus earning the disdain of Deputy Prefect Guan. However, there was nothing particularly remarkable about him. Deputy Prefect Guan saw some utility in having such an individual around, so he harbored no intention of ousting him. For Jia Heming, leaving the government office voluntarily was out of the question. What prospects awaited a cultivated talent like himself elsewhere? His position at the state office, though sometimes idle, was still preferable to most other professions. Seeking a similar post elsewhere after departing Anne's province would be nothing short of wishful thinking. Yet deep down he still yearned to forge a career. And finally, an opportunity presented itself. Replacing Deputy Prefect Guan didn't trouble Jia Heming in the least. Lord Xiao had already displayed remarkable leniency by retaining someone with Deputy Prefect Guan's dubious intentions within the government office. Any other ruler would have likely thrown him behind bars. This significant reshuffling within the state office served as a sobering reminder for the families across Anne's province. They grew more circumspect in their words and actions, realizing they could ill afford to underestimate the current prefect lord. If Deputy Prefect Guan, a figure entrenched in Anne's province for a decade, could be dealt with so swiftly, then others stood even less of a chance. There were whispers circulating among the populace, mocking the prefect lord for his perceived complacency and obstinacy. If he could dismiss someone like Deputy Prefect Guan, who could he rely on? Jia Heming? Who was Jia Heming anyway? His name was virtually unheard of. Without Deputy Prefect Guan's support, the future of Anne's province seemed uncertain. Leaders from the Min family tribe, Liuhe Fort, and Tiger Head tribe convened at the Min family tribe to address the recent grain thefts. In years past, the issue of food distribution hadn't been such a hassle. The government of Anne's prefecture and the affluent families maintained an unspoken agreement. These families would manage the distribution of food themselves, collecting and transporting it from designated locations with assistance from villagers. Of course, this food was provided by the city. But this year, not only did the prefect lord refuse to allow the city's wealthy families to continue supplying food, he also issued a ludicrous recruitment notice. What a farce! It was maddening. The trio managed to obtain a copy of the notice from a villager and read it aloud. It was both amusing and infuriating. Chapter 1836. Recruitment Certificate. The bandits couldn't resist ridiculing the prefect lord, deriding him as a mere bookworm, pedantic, absurd and ignorant. They wondered if he had only ascended to his position this year. While they roamed the mountains, the prefect lord was likely burning the midnight oil, buried in his books. To think he had the audacity to issue such proclamations to the it must have been a strain for him to fill a piece of paper with such nonsense. They yearned to descend the mountain immediately and teach that reckless prefect lord a lesson, to show him the boundaries of his speech. What a load of rubbish, this so-called recruitment! They felt insulted by such words. If they didn't know that the prefect lord had a handful of constables and subordinates skilled in martial arts, if they weren't aware of their grasp of the imperial court's constraints, they wouldn't have hesitated to raid Anne's province, let alone venture into the government office to stir up trouble. As they gathered, they couldn't resist mocking and jesting at the purported documents. Lord Xiao must have lost his mind. These scholarly types are all the same lost in their books. He's quite confident. Let's see how that turns out for him. This time we're not just after food. We're going to give him a lesson he won't forget, so he learns not to overstep. In the end, the bandits reached a unanimous decision. They would join forces in this endeavor. Failure was not an option. They were determined to deliver a resounding blow to that pedantic prefect lord with their actions. As luck would have it, they had learned that the next shipment of grain would be making its way back to Anne's province city from Liangshan town in 3 days' time. Liangshan town, situated to the north of Anne's province, lay 100 miles away from the city. En route, they would pass through a vast rock canyon spanning over 10 miles. The canyon, deep and lengthy, boasted towering cliffs on either side and treacherous peaks. Remarkably, this colossal rock formation was situated not far from Liuhe Fort. It seemed like the perfect gathering point for their plans. The second-in-command of the Tiger Head tribe spoke with icy resolve. "I'll lead the charge. Those constables are going to meet their end." After half a year of recuperation, his injuries had finally healed. But this matter had left him deeply humiliated. It felt like a stain on his honor, a wound that refused to heal. He couldn't bear the thought of facing his comrades with his head held low. Revenge was now imperative. Only by avenging his past humiliation could he regain his dignity. Moreover, he harbored a deep-seated hatred for the prefect lord. Despite his outward appearance of recovery, he knew his body's foundation remained compromised. His strength and agility were but shadows of their former selves. If it came to a fight, his endurance would pale in comparison to what it once was. The momentary lapse in judgment had led to grave consequences. How could he not feel enraged? The fourth-in-command of the Min family tribe chuckled softly. "I have no objections to you leading the charge, but let's not rush to execute the leaders. I prefer to capture them alive, bring them back to our mountain stronghold, and let you unleash your fury upon them." Second-in-command Chao looked at him disapprovingly. The fourth-in-command of the Min family tribe grinned. "Our fourth brother has taken a liking to that horse and wishes to pressure Lord Xiao into exchanging it for another. Second brother Chao, I do appreciate your assistance in this matter." In the Min family tribe, the first and third heads bore the surname Min, while the second-in-command and fourth-in-command adopted the surname Min as well, making all 4 leaders Min family heads. Second-in-command Chao frowned reluctantly. "Exchange hostages? I can't guarantee their survival." Chapter 1837. Discussing the tribulation of food. Second-in-command Min remained nonchalant. "As long as Lord Xiao believes they're still breathing and is willing to trade that horse, it matters little to me." Understanding his implication, the group exchanged knowing glances and chuckled. Even second-in-command Chao joined in, his laughter laced with a fierce edge. "Fine, we'll nab him alive. Once he's in my grasp, How rue the day he set foot in this world. As bandits, reneging on promises to authorities was par for the course. So what if they didn't release him after securing the horse? If Lord Xiao had the gall, he could come to the mountain and contest with them. Fourth in command Min chuckled, laying claim to the horse. That steed is a gem. I saw it first. None of you better lay a finger on it when the time comes. Second in command Chao snorted. I only seek retribution. Though the others were tempted, fourth in command Min's declaration left them with little choice but to acquiesce with smiles. As the bandits plotted their grain heist, Xiao Yunduan, Zheng Sang, Sun Bai, Sun Qian Wu Guan and the Wei brothers, sent by Meng Wanfu, convened to discuss the topography of An's province. Zheng Sang and the others, seasoned in military strategy, could easily anticipate the tactics of these unconventional mountain bandits. Lord Xiao's arrogant attitude, epitomized by his measly offering of 1,000th of a tael, seemed to belittle the bandits as mere weaklings. Such hubris would undoubtedly stoke their fury. These bandits were untamed and boastful, accustomed to referring to themselves as princes, kings, and monarchs. How could they tolerate such insolence? How could they resist the urge to teach Lord Xiao a humiliating lesson? Moreover, with the upcoming shipment of food passing through the treacherous rock canyon en route from Liangshan town, the bandits saw an irresistible opportunity for plunder. Despite the inevitable heightened vigilance from the government, they remained undeterred. Their lack of knowledge about the government's true strength, coupled with their belief that any previous defeats were due to underestimating the enemy, fueled their confidence. This time, they meticulously planned every detail. How could the government hope to stand against them? Xiao Yunduan cast a grave glance at his companions, speaking in a hushed tone. The mountain bandits may underestimate our strength, but we mustn't underestimate theirs. We must be thoroughly prepared this time. Remember, stay vigilant and never let your guard down. There's no room for mercy this time. Shoot on sight and capture the bandit leader alive if possible. Yes, Lord. With Jia Heming as deputy prefect, Xiao Yunduan felt a weight lifted from his shoulders. At least now, he didn't have to be as vigilant when organizing dispatches. Deputy Prefect Guan, or rather, Scribe Guan, was so enraged that he feigned illness and avoided attending court. He remained holed up at home recuperating. Xiao Yunduan couldn't have asked for a better outcome, and eagerly awaited his recovery. A few days after Scribe Guan and his family vacated the backyard, the Fan family unexpectedly sent a letter to Qiao Xian, inviting the prefect's wife and the deputy prefect's wife to their mansion to admire chrysanthemums, enjoy wine, and listen to opera. Mrs. Jia found herself in a quandary. She was reluctant to attend such a high-profile event, particularly at the Fan family's residence, which she suspected harbored ulterior motives. Chapter 1838. Fan family's treat. I've never attended such a large family banquet before. I'm feeling quite unprepared and uncertain. What if I embarrass myself? Perhaps I should find a polite excuse to decline the invitation. We can discuss it further later. Madam Xiao, what do you think? Qiao Xian offered a reassuring smile. First, Madam Fan extended a personal invitation, so it wouldn't be wise to decline. Don't fret, I'll be by your side. And as the wife of the deputy prefect, even old lady Fan will have to accord you some respect. What's there to fear? The Fan clan might be influential, but it's not a den of tigers. Just stick with me when the time comes. Well, Mrs. Jia couldn't refuse Qiao Xian's kindness. After some thought, she nodded with a smile. All right, I'll trust your guidance, and I hope you'll offer some advice. Don't worry. Although, I should caution you that Scribe Guan's wife might also be in attendance. Just be mentally prepared. Scribe Guan's wife? Initially unfamiliar with the term, Mrs. Jia's anxiety heightened as she pondered. Qiao Xian chuckled. It's no secret that old lady Fan and the lady of the Fan family have never seen eye to eye with me. And Scribe Guan's wife isn't one to be underestimated either. She's not one to take being sidelined lightly. It's only natural for the Fan family to extend an invitation to her. Wasn't it obvious that he was aiming to stir up trouble and enjoy the spectacle? Mrs. Jia glanced anxiously at Qiao Xian. Indeed, Mrs. Guan was not one to be trifled with. Historically, all the scribes' wives had to cater to her whims. Those who failed to flatter her adequately, or were simply not to her liking, were met with disdain and ridicule. Jia Heming had never found favor with Scribe Guan, and Mrs. Jia had been subjected to Mrs. Guan's mockery. Given Mrs. Guan's volatile nature, encountering her at the Fan family's gathering could easily lead to confrontation. Wouldn't that Mianiyuro? Qiao Xian grinned. What's there to fear? We won't incite trouble, but we won't allow ourselves to be pushed around either. She's merely a scribe's wife. There's no need to be intimidated. If she crosses a line, give her a piece of your mind. She won't relent unless Scribe Guan intervenes, and I doubt he'd be willing to do that. Though still somewhat apprehensive, Mrs. Jia felt reassured by Qiao Xian's words. After a moment's consideration, she nodded with a smile. You're right. I'll trust your judgment. Qiao Xian's smile widened. Don't fret. If she oversteps, I won't hesitate to address it. Xiao Yunduan had been instrumental in promoting Deputy Prefect Jia, and during a conversation with Qiao Xian in the office, he expressed great satisfaction with Jia's performance. He was even pleasantly surprised by Jia's adept handling of various administrative tasks, marveling at his efficiency and organization. Since assuming the role of deputy prefect, Jia's capabilities had grown exponentially compared to his time as a scribe. Xiao Yunduan couldn't help but feel fortunate. He had stumbled upon a valuable asset. It was only natural for Qiao Xian to safeguard Mrs. Jia. They were a team after all. Mrs. Jia felt completely reassured. With a smile, she rose and took her leave. Chapter 1839. Just what I wanted. Qiao Xian paused, a subtle smile playing on her lips. She then instructed Li Xia and Li Qiu to fetch some attire suitable for the upcoming banquet at the Fan family's residence in a couple of days. Unbeknownst to Mrs. Jia, Qiao Xian regarded the Fan family's invitation merely as an opportunity to advance her own agenda. With Xiao Yunduan having already incurred the wrath of the bandits from the 3 villages, Qiao Xian was eager to provoke the Fan family as well. It could potentially yield favorable results. Both Xiao Yunduan and Qiao Xian harbored suspicions that these affluent families might have clandestine dealings with the bandits. The Mei family and the Hua family appeared to adopt a neutral stance, seemingly aligning themselves with whichever faction emerged victorious. Consequently, Xiao Yunduan deemed them unworthy of serious consideration. Banditry was rampant in An's province, forcing many to engage in covert transactions for survival. This was an accepted reality. However, the deep-seated animosity the old lady of the Fan family harbored towards Xiao Yunduan and Qiao Xian raised doubts about whether she would seek to establish any form of collaboration. Xiao Yunduan's strategy involved eliminating the mountain bandits before consolidating control over An's province's local power structure. This approach would facilitate smoother execution of commands, circumventing the need for incessant clashes with influential family clans. Few things were as daunting as the prospect of dismantling one of the 3 mighty clans, namely, the Fan clan. The Fan family likely never imagined that, in the eyes of the prefect, their reckoning loomed on the horizon. That morning, after spending some time playing with her son and attending to his needs, Qiao Xian entrusted him to the care of the nanny and maids. She then changed into her attire as a guest, tidied her hair, and dispatched a servant to summon Mrs. Jia. Qiao Xian's attire was resplendent. A vibrant satin gown adorned with inch-wide silver trimmings along the sleeves, collar and lapels. Delicate begonia flowers were intricately embroidered onto the edges, complemented by a pleated white silk skirt. Her hair was styled into an elegant bun, accented by a peach-shaped red jade ornament with rubies, and adorned with diamond-shaped beaded jade hairpins at the temples. With lightly brushed eyebrows, delicately tinted cherry lips, and a complexion akin to smooth jade, her minimal makeup enhanced her clear autumn eyes and radiant smile. Each gesture exuded grace and poise befitting the prefect's wife, commanding respect without appearing domineering. Mrs. Jia, too, was attired for the occasion, donning a silver-blue embroidered gown paired with a golden hairpin, emanating an air of dignified elegance. These matching grape ornaments were a special gift from Qiao Xian to Deputy Prefect Jia upon his recent promotion. Exquisitely crafted and adorned with rubies and sapphires, exuding opulent splendor. This pair of golden hairpins was valued at around 500 taels of silver, a sum far beyond Jia Hemming's means. Upon receiving the gift, the couple was taken aback. Though they couldn't ascertain its exact value, they could discern its extravagance. Mrs. Jia hesitated to accept it, considering its exorbitant worth, and suggested returning it to Qiao Xian. However, Jia Hemming insisted they retain the gift, proposing instead to express their gratitude personally by sending a gift to the East Courtyard the following day. It was the first time Mrs. Jia had adorned herself with these golden hairpins to receive guests. Despite feeling a bit anxious, Qiao Xian's compliment eased her nerves. "These golden hairpins suit you perfectly, Mrs. Jia. They enhance your appearance beautifully. I have a knack for selecting gifts." "Indeed you do," Mrs. Jia responded with a smile, feeling reassured. Unperturbed by the anticipation of the grand entrance, Qiao Xian remained unfazed. Upon their arrival at the Fan family's residence, they discovered they weren't the last to arrive, though nearly all the guests had assembled. Chapter 1840. Confrontation. Second Mrs. Fan was hosting the guests in the garden pavilion, while First Madame Fan stepped out to welcome Qiao Xian. Fan Ruyan, adorned in resplendent attire, trailed behind them, wearing a smile. First Madame Fan's expression darkened momentarily, but unable to voice her thoughts, she relented. Upon spotting Qiao Xian and Mrs. Jia, First Madame Fan warmly greeted them upon their arrival at the mansion. Though no one else noticed, Mrs. Jia caught several disdainful glances from Fan Ruyan. Feeling irritated, she suppressed her emotions and feigned ignorance. Unbeknownst to her, Fan Ruyan's contempt for her deepened. In Fan Ruyan's eyes, Mrs. Jia appeared undeserving of her position as the deputy prefect's wife, seemingly elevated through sycophancy rather than merit. With a smile, Fan Ruyan remarked, "Madame Xiao and Mrs. Jia seem to share a close bond. The relationship between the deputy prefect's wife and the prefect's wife is truly exceptional." Qiao Xian shot her a glance before nodding with a polite smile. Fan Ruyan grudgingly acquiesced, but before she could question why Mrs. Jia hadn't been as close to Mrs. Guan before, First Madame Fan swiftly intervened. Sensing the impending negativity, First Madame Fan swiftly redirected the conversation with a smile. "Sister, are the pastries in the pastry room prepared? Could you please check for me? I'd greatly appreciate it." Though disgruntled, Fan Ruyan couldn't openly defy her sister-in-law's request. Reluctantly, she complied, casting a disdainful glance at First Madame Fan before departing. What was her sister-in-law insinuating? Madame Xiao and Lord Xiao held no regard for the Fan family. They had brought disgrace upon them, causing considerable financial losses. So why should she restrain herself from making a few cutting remarks? Did the Fan family now grovel at the feet of others? Since when had the Fan family become so feeble and susceptible to bullying? After being slapped, were they to eagerly present their cheeks for another strike? Was her mother's invitation merely a facade to reconcile with her? Did her sister-in-law remain oblivious to this? First Madame Fan extended polite greetings and ushered Qiao Xian and Mrs. Jia to the pavilion. The assembled guests greeted them warmly, with Qiao Xian reciprocating with a genial smile as she settled beside Mrs. Jia. Many women discreetly appraised Mrs. Jia. While some were familiar with her, most were not. However, today's gathering would acquaint them with her. As the deputy prefect's wife, Mrs. Jia now commanded a different level of respect. Henceforth, any invitation extended to the deputy prefect would naturally include his wife. Inviting the prefect's wife to a banquet was considered an honor. Several guests couldn't help stealing glances at Mrs. Guan. Known for her prickly temperament, her pallid complexion betrayed her inner turmoil. Despite her efforts to maintain composure, her visible tension didn't go unnoticed. Internally, many chuckled, yet a sense of anticipation lingered. It was evident that the Fan family's deliberate inclusion of Mrs. Guan was meant to provoke discord. It appeared the Fan family harbored a deep-seated animosity towards Lord Xiao and Madame Xiaoyuro. Chapter 1841. Meeting on a narrow path, Mrs. Guan braced herself for the challenges she anticipated facing that day. Despite knowing the ordeal that awaited her, she chose to attend nonetheless. Why should she stay away? Her conscience was clear. She had done nothing wrong. If anyone should feel ashamed or avoid confrontation, it was not her. With pursed lips, Mrs. Guan cast a chilling glare at Xiao Xian. Her gaze bore such intensity that it was impossible to ignore. Xiao Xian, however, met her gaze calmly, her expression serene, as though Mrs. Guan were no different from any other guest. Mrs. Guan's chest tightened. One thought echoed in her mind. What audacity! Why did Xiao Xian exude such self-righteousness? Observing this exchange, Mrs. Jia couldn't contain her satisfaction. Finally, Mrs. Guan faced repercussions. Witnessing this was immensely gratifying. The fleeting illusion dissolved as reality set in. Mrs. Guan was no longer the deputy prefect's wife, and her husband had indeed secured a promotion. Fan Ruyan rolled her eyes and addressed Mrs. Jia with a saccharine smile. Mrs. Jia, what a delightful surprise to have you here. Although we've never met before, today provides us with an opportunity to acquaint ourselves. You should grace us with your presence more often. It would afford us the chance to forge a deeper connection. Much like with Mrs. Guan, we're all quite familiar with each other here. Since you're a regular attendee, I'm sure you're well acquainted with Mrs. Guan, aren't you? Mrs. Guan's disdain was evident in her sneer, cutting through the air with clarity. Throughout the gathering, numerous glances exchanged conveyed subtle messages, laden with meaning or ambiguity. Feeling somewhat uneasy, Mrs. Jia sought solace in Xiao Xian's composed demeanor as she conversed with another guest, seemingly oblivious to the tension. Mustering her resolve, Mrs. Jia nodded in agreement with Fan Ruyan's compliment. Your kindness is greatly appreciated, Mrs. Bai. In her response, she tacitly endorsed Fan Ruyan's suggestion, signaling her willingness to engage more actively in social gatherings in the future. However, as Mrs. Guan contemplated Mrs. Jia's prospective interactions with the other ladies, attending lavish events, and being accorded the same respect she once enjoyed, a surge of irritation coursed through her. All of this had once been hers. Jia Hemming's efforts to curry favor with Xiao Yunduan, betraying her in the process, had led to her displacement and her husband's downfall. Mrs. Jia, whom she had scarcely acknowledged in the office, now occupied the position she once held. How could she possibly accept this? Rage simmered within Mrs. Guan, manifesting as a slight tremor in her body. She glared at Mrs. Jia with a sharp look. Fan Ruyan's bright smile adorned her face as she coyly covered her mouth, emitting a girlish giggle. Oh, you're far too kind. Your grace, virtue, and elegance are unmistakable. One glance is all it takes to discern that you're no ordinary woman. It's no wonder you've been blessed with such good fortune. I dare say, your luck still lies ahead of us, doesn't it? Ha ha ha. With a genial smile, Fan Ruyan directed her question to the assembled guests, each of whom felt compelled to respond with smiles and nods of agreement. Mrs. Guan seethed with mounting fury, her grip on her handkerchief tight enough to fray its edges. She recognized Fan Ruyan's deliberate provocation, yet her anger wasn't directed towards Fan Ruyan herself. Instead, she harbored resentment towards Xiao Xian and Mrs. Jia. Observing Mrs. Jia's uneasy demeanor and awkward response, Mrs. Guan's rage intensified. How could she have been replaced by someone like her, who lacked eloquence and social finesse? Chapter 1842. Most reasonable Mrs. Guan refrained from confronting Xiao Xian directly, yet she harbored no apprehension towards Mrs. Jia, whom she had never held in high regard. Nevertheless, she remained steadfast in her refusal to accept the situation. Fixing her gaze on Mrs. Jia, Mrs. Guan's smile turned icy. The story isn't over yet. Whether it's a blessing or not remains to be seen. With a smirk, she continued. But I must say, your attire today is quite the revelation. As the saying goes, fine feathers make fine birds. You appear remarkably presentable today, almost unrecognizable from your former self. A few ladies couldn't stifle their amusement, discreetly covering their mouths to suppress their laughter. Mrs. Guan's thinly veiled mockery of Mrs. Jia's previous modest appearance, contrasted with her current perceived arrogance, did not go unnoticed. Mrs. Jia anticipated Mrs. Guan's taunt, yet found herself at a loss for words. Responding in kind would only reflect poorly on her character, especially considering Mrs. Guan's former position of authority over her. Thus, she treaded carefully, mindful of her former boss' sensitivities and her own gentle disposition. Xiao Xian interjected, directing a pointed glance at Mrs. Guan as she spoke with a placid smile. Mrs. Guan, perhaps you're unaware, but today is a joyous occasion. As the wife of the deputy prefect, Mrs. Jia is naturally in high spirits, which reflects in her appearance. Naturally, she's inclined to dress accordingly, signaling a change from her previous status. Mrs. Jia expressed her gratitude to Xiao Xian with a nod. I often stumble over my words, but you articulate things perfectly. Empowered by Xiao Xian's support, Mrs. Jia felt emboldened to assert herself. Observing Xiao Xian's defense of Mrs. Jia, Mrs. Guan's frustration reached its boiling point. During her tenure as the deputy prefect's wife, Xiao Xian had offered her no assistance. Instead, she seemed to single her out for criticism without cause. Jealousy and irritation consumed Mrs. Guan as she spoke up. Hee, what's there to be so arrogant about? Xiao Xian maintained her composure, her smile unwavering. And what, may I ask, is arrogant about it? Mr. Jia's promotion naturally brings joy and pride to Mrs. Jia as his wife. It's a simple matter of human nature. Who wouldn't celebrate a positive development? Surely, you wouldn't be pleased if faced with a demotion or adversity in your own family. It's only natural to rejoice in good fortune. You, Mrs. Guan seethed, sensing Xiao Xian's veiled insinuation. With a serene smile, Xiao Xian continued, Mrs. Guan, do you disagree with my assessment? Mrs. Guan's anger threatened to overwhelm her. She scoffed derisively. I wouldn't dare. Who would dare challenge the judgment of the prefect's wife? If we incur her displeasure, who knows what repercussions we might face? Xiao Xian remained unperturbed. No, she countered. I'm known for my fairness, as I'm sure everyone here can attest. Only those seeking special treatment, insisting on being treated differently, would perceive me as unreasonable. As for transparency in outcomes, there's no cause for concern. Whether it's our Lord or myself, we prioritize transparency. If anyone feels uncertain about their situation, it's either due to misunderstanding or an unwillingness to acknowledge the truth. If you have any uncertainties, simply inquire and clarity will be provided. Oh, don't claim you're too afraid to ask. Doing so would be quite uncivilized behavior. Chapter 1843. Sowing discord. Mrs. Guan's composure shattered upon hearing Xiao Xian's words. With a disdainful sneer, she retorted, A hooligan? Madame Xiao, that's a bit too far. Madame Xiao remained firm. It's not excessive at all. Consider this, you claim to be aggrieved, yet when questioned about the cause, you remain silent. How can others respond? Enraged, Mrs. Guan shot accusatory glances at both Xiao Xian and Mrs. Jia. Rising from her seat, she snapped, I see through this charade now. You're aiding Mrs. Jia in tormenting me, aren't you? What's the point of rubbing salt in the wound? Haven't you humiliated us enough? If you'd rather not have me here, I'll leave. I won't be a nuisance. Mrs. Guan, please refrain. Fan Ruyan intervened swiftly, aware of the unsightly spectacle unfolding. She attempted to defuse the tension. Guiding Mrs. Guan back to her seat, Fan Ruyan maintained a placating tone. Mrs. Guan, that's not what Madame Xiao intended. You're letting your imagination run wild. Let's calm down. But it's undeniable that Madame Xiao is tending to Mrs. Jia exceptionally well. It's a side of her we haven't seen before. The implication hung in the air, unspoken yet keenly felt. Mrs. Guan's frustration was palpable, and her reaction was understandable. Nevertheless, voicing this sentiment would only exacerbate matters, potentially reopening old wounds. After all, Mrs. Guan's status had changed since her husband's demotion from deputy prefect. Silent exchanges among the onlookers conveyed their astonishment and discomfort. Mrs. Bai had indeed crossed a line. As the wife of the prefect, her words were unmistakably divisive. How could Madame Xiao confront this situation? In truth, Madame Xiao was more than capable of facing it head-on. Instead of directly addressing the question, she responded with a genuine smile. I didn't have the opportunity to get to know Mrs. Jia previously, so I couldn't extend my care to her even if I had wished to. Mrs. Jia stifled a laugh, chiming in. Indeed, am delighted to receive your care now, Madame Xiao. When you first arrived in An's province, we hadn't yet acquainted ourselves. The ensuing silence spoke volumes, punctuated by Mrs. Guan and Fan Ruyan's simmering indignation. What was the insinuation behind her words? Madame Xiao's feigned ignorance was transparent. Just then, first Madame Fan returned, ushering everyone to their seats to enjoy the festivities. Fan Ruyan put on a smile, though her eyes betrayed a frosty demeanor. Mrs. Guan shot dagger-like glances at Mrs. Jia throughout the meal, her resentment palpable. During the seating arrangements, Fan Ruyan placed Mrs. Guan at the table with Qiao Xian and Mrs. Jia. Curiously, Mrs. Guan opted to sit beside Mrs. Jia, prompting a subtle sigh of relief from the latter. Mrs. Guan perceived it all as a cheap ploy, a devious stratagem, cursing inwardly, sycophant, deceitful schemer, utterly shameless. She scoffed internally at the implication. So what if she was once the wife of the deputy prefect? She was nothing more than a lapdog at Madame Xiao's side. As the banquet commenced, Qiao Xian's smirk directed towards Mrs. Guan was accompanied by a pointed remark. Mrs. Guan, perhaps instruct your servants to be cautious when serving, lest Mrs. Jia receive the wrong dish. We wouldn't want rumors circulating about your narrow-mindedness and vengeful intentions, would we? Chapter 1844. Half-joke exposed Mrs. Guan had contemplated such a move. But even if it seemed obvious, she doubted Mrs. Jia would dare to retaliate. However, Qiao Xian's jesting tone gave her pause. Repeating the act would be undeniably shameless. Though Mrs. Guan didn't find dealing with people like Qiao Xian and Mrs. Jia particularly daunting, she preferred not to draw attention in front of the crowd. What do you mean, Madame Xiao? Am not quite following. Mrs. Guan feigned surprise, masking her true intentions with a chuckle. My servants are quite astute. They wouldn't be so careless. Perhaps there's been a misunderstanding, Madame Xiao. Qiao Xian's smile widened. Ah, excellent then. Fan Ruyan couldn't help but envy Mrs. Guan's composure. Madame Xiao's generosity towards Mrs. Jia, the deputy prefect's wife, is truly remarkable. It's a far cry from her treatment of the deputy prefect's previous wife. The mention of her past status as the deputy prefect's wife nearly caused Mrs. Guan to retch. Qiao Xian's nonchalant reply carried a hint of jest. Well, there are many things you're not privy to. Fan Ruyan choked back a retort. She knew all too well. This person was endlessly vexing. Indeed, the Fan clan lived up to its reputation as one of the three great clans. The array of dishes presented was nothing short of breathtaking, eliciting endless praise. However, Mrs. Guan, her anger simmering beneath the surface, found herself unable to savor the delicacies before her. Standing next to Mrs. Guan, Mrs. Jia elicited a feeling of disdain within her. Mrs. Guan perceived Mrs. Jia as lacking in refinement and sophistication, her eyes lighting up with each dish served as though she had never experienced such fare before. It was a disgrace, especially considering the lavish treatment bestowed upon her by Madame Xiao. Mrs. Guan harbored a fleeting desire to spill her soup on Mrs. Jia. Yet Qiao Xian's earlier admonition stayed her hand. After the banquet concluded, the guests gathered in the flower hall to enjoy tea before strolling through the garden to aid digestion and admire the blossoms. While Qiao Xian found himself surrounded by a throng of animated ladies, Mrs. Jia found herself relegated to a secluded corner, conversing with Mrs. Guan. With clenched fists, Mrs. Guan resisted the urge to strike Mrs. Jia. Instead, she offered a chilling smile. Observing Mrs. Jia's fearful and evasive demeanor, Mrs. Guan experienced a conflicting mix of disdain and envy. She despised the fact that someone like Mrs. Jia could dare to tread upon her, figuratively speaking, asserting superiority over her. Envy festered within Mrs. Guan as she pondered Madame Xiao's arrogance and obstinacy. Never once had Madame Xiao deigned to meet her gaze, consistently making her existence arduous and harboring disdain towards her. How could she not feel incensed? With a contemptuous sneer directed at Mrs. Jia, who attempted to evade her verbal assault, Mrs. Guan lashed out. Who would have thought that you'd become so haughty after associating with a prominent family? Humph, your former meekness has given way to smugness. One can indeed never judge a book by its cover. What right have you to act so superior in my presence? You are nothing more than a lapdog to me. How long do you reckon your arrogance will endure? Even our old master, a paragon of virtue, has his limits. I'm curious to see how capable Scribe Jia truly is. Mrs. Jia, unable to stomach Mrs. Guan's shameless tirade, gritted her teeth in frustration. Mrs. Guan, I implore you to mind your manners. There's a line you shouldn't cross. And what if I choose to cross it? Mrs. Guan's anger flared even hotter. Chapter 1845. Madame Xiao's offer. She raised her hand threateningly towards Mrs. Jia, who instinctively recoiled. Amused by Mrs. Jia's reaction, Mrs. Guan chuckled derisively. You're unworthy of being the deputy prefect's wife. What significance do you hold? You're nothing in my eyes. Mrs. Jia retorted, her voice trembling. I may be insignificant, I'm aware of that, but I am still the deputy prefect's wife. You should show me some respect, or else €1. Or else what? Mrs. Guan's fury boiled over as she fixed Mrs. Jia with a steely glare. What can you possibly do? Are you threatening me? Mrs. Guan found the situation ludicrous and demeaning. How dare Mrs. Jia assert dominance in her presence? Drawing courage from Madame Xiao's support, Mrs. Guan remained undeterred. Mrs. Jia's heart raced, her legs feeling like jelly. And my husband is now the deputy prefect. If you continue like this, I will report your behavior to him. Why wouldn't you? I have every confidence in your loyalty. Mrs. Guan sneered contemptuously. I won't forget how your husband climbed the ranks, even if you choose to overlook it. A man who betrays and schemes for his own advancement is nothing but a tool. Do you truly believe Lord Xiao would condone such treachery? He's merely a pawn in Lord Xiao's game. Mark my words, when he's no longer useful, he'll be discarded like trash by those he once served. What else do you expect? What authority does that haughty prefect's wife possess to shield you? Do you truly believe she acts out of benevolence and affection towards you? How naive. Mrs. Jia, unable to stomach such slander, felt her face flush with anger. Cease your baseless accusations. Madame Xiao is not the person you portray her to be. Anyone with eyes can see that since their arrival in An's province, Madame Xiao and Lord Xiao have conducted themselves with transparency and integrity. It's those accustomed to exploiting others who now resent their loss of opportunity. This is not the fault of Lord Xiao and Madame Xiao. They're working to rectify the situation. €1. Furthermore, my husband did not betray or frame old Master Guan. Unless Mrs. Guan can provide evidence, it would be wise to refrain from spreading unfounded rumors. What will you do if an investigation is launched? Mrs. Jia believed she was offering a gentle reminder, but Mrs. Guan interpreted it as a threat. The former meek woman, who once cowered in his presence, now revealed a sharp and resolute side. She dared to insult her. Mrs. Guan felt herself on the verge of losing control. Indeed, power wielded its influence, emboldening individuals to act more assertively. Mrs. Guan couldn't stand the sight of Mrs. Jia's countenance. She yearned to deliver a resounding slap, reducing her to her knees, begging for clemency. Yet, she retained a semblance of rationality. While she entertained such thoughts, she knew better than to act upon them. Today's gathering boasted a sizable audience. If she, the wife of a mere scribe, were to strike the deputy prefect's wife, she'd become a laughingstock, perceived as a sore loser. As for Madame Xiao, she possessed leverage, undoubtedly poised to exploit it for maximum effect. Chapter 1846. Why should she compensate? Are you attempting to intimidate me? Mrs. Guan sneered, her tone dripping with disdain. Who do you think you are? How dare you threaten me? You want proof? Fine, I'll provide it. Without hesitation, Mrs. Guan removed the jade bracelet from her wrist before Mrs. Jia's bewildered gaze. Brandishing it before her, she released her grip, allowing the bracelet to plummet to the ground, shattering into 3 pieces. Mrs. Jia's eyes widened in astonishment. Mrs. Guan's sneer deepened. You've broken my bracelet. €1, a piece valued at 400 taels of silver. Mrs. Jia, are you prepared to compensate me with silver or an equivalent bracelet? The emerald green bracelet emitted a soft, ethereal glow, undoubtedly fetching a hefty sum. Even if its value didn't quite reach 400 taels of silver, it easily exceeded 200 taels euro, an indisputably pricey item. But Mrs. Jia couldn't possibly afford such a sum, whether it be 200 or 400 taels. Moreover, why should she compensate at all? Mrs. Jia and her attendant were dumbfounded by Mrs. Guan's audacity. It's you a euro me? Mrs. Guan scoffed. Do you truly believe I deliberately discarded such a valuable piece of jewelry? Preposterous. It's blatantly obvious. Who would believe such nonsense? Just because you're the wife of the deputy prefect, don't presume you can freely distort the truth and besmirch others' reputations. A euro. As Fan Ruyan and her companions enjoyed the flowers, they overheard the confrontation. Stepping forward with a genial smile, Fan Ruyan interjected, Mrs. Guan and Mrs. Jia, you seem quite engrossed in conversation. What's the topic of discussion? Mrs. Guan sneered, wasting no time in recounting the incident. Mrs. Bai, perhaps you can offer your judgment euro after presenting her version of events, she demanded. Shouldn't Mrs. Jiao apologize and compensate? This isn't how one should treat others, is it? Mrs. Jia, on the verge of tears, protested. I didn't do it. I didn't lay a hand on her bracelet. How could I have broken it? She must have done it herself. Mrs. Guan's sneer persisted. Fan Ruyan maintained a composed smile. But that contradicts Mrs. Guan's account. Furthermore, why would Mrs. Guan break her own bracelet? It's clearly of considerable value. Mrs. Jia, Deputy Prefect Jia's finances have improved. Affording the compensation shouldn't be an issue for you. Another lady chimed in, smiling. I find it hard to believe that Mrs. Guan would harm herself just to frame Mrs. Jia. Mrs. Jia can't simply deny responsibility to avoid compensation. That's absolutely right, this is blatant bullying. Mrs. Guan felt a surge of satisfaction as she pressured Mrs. Jia into offering an apology. Fan Ruyan maintained her composure as she spoke. Mrs. Jia may now hold the position of deputy prefect's wife, but that doesn't justify unreasonable behavior. You've undergone quite the transformation, Mrs. Guan. I've encountered you once or twice before, and you're markedly different now. Ever since assuming the role of the deputy prefect's wife, you've exhibited a newfound assertiveness. There's nothing you wouldn't dare to do. Even if you dare to act, you must take responsibility for your actions. Mrs. Guan sneered triumphantly. Exactly. You dare to act, yet refuse to accept accountability? I'm well aware of the grudge you've held against me for some time now. And now you've seized upon an opportunity. If it were any other matter, it might be overlooked. However, this bracelet holds sentimental value for me and is quite valuable. Given our family's financial situation, we can ill afford such losses. Even if you attempt to intimidate me, I have no choice but to speak the truth. Chapter 1847. Each opinion. Mrs. Jia seethed with fury. You're twisting the truth. Never had Mrs. Jia imagined she'd face such brazen accusations. Yet, upon reflection, she couldn't deny the logic behind them. She had been painted as despicable and vengeful, unjustly maligned. With Fan Ruyan and the others seemingly aligning against her, Mrs. Jia felt utterly perplexed and cornered. Refusing to concede to false allegations, Mrs. Jia declared, I will never confess to a crime I didn't commit. I wouldn't even deign to approach Mrs. Guan, let alone harm her or her belongings. If you insist it's me, then she lacks evidence. Let's seek resolution from Madame Xiao. Why bother? Mrs. Guan sneered, her jealousy palpable. Isn't it obvious she's biased in your favor? Are you seeking refuge? Ignoring the jibe, Mrs. Jia turned to leave. Mrs. Guan blocked her path, bellowing, You're not going anywhere until we settle this. Mrs. Jia's tone turned icy. Even if it means taking this to court, you can't detain me, can you? To court? It was clear who held sway in the court of law, Lord Xiao. Anger coursed through Mrs. Jia as she trembled with frustration. Dealing with Mrs. Guan proved far more challenging than Mrs. Jia anticipated. Her demeanor bordered on bullying, leaving Mrs. Jia feeling backed into a corner. It seemed that unless Mrs. Jia capitulated to Mrs. Guan's accusations, she'd inevitably be branded as the wrongdoer. It was a crowded affair, and upon hearing the news, Qiao Xian instructed Li Xia to summon both Mrs. Jia and Mrs. Guan. With the prefect's wife intervening, everyone fell in line. Mrs. Guan shot Mrs. Jia a disdainful glance, her sneer dripping with contempt. Seems you have someone in your corner. Let's see how you try to twist the truth now. Aware of Qiao Xian's staunch support for Mrs. Jia and their ongoing feud, onlookers began to cast speculative glances at Mrs. Jia. Sympathy naturally gravitated towards the underdog. Since Xiao Yunduan's arrival in An's province, his decisive and efficient leadership had compelled these entrenched family clans to relinquish their unwarranted privileges. While they may not have been entirely swayed by the prefect, they certainly had to heed his directives. The same held true for Qiao Xian. Seeing Mrs. Guan embroiled in trouble, pity welled up among the onlookers. Deep down, bias crept in as some silently pinned the blame on Mrs. Jia. After all, it wasn't entirely inconceivable for Mrs. Jia to have broken Mrs. Guan's bracelet euro when they convened before Qiao Xian. Mrs. Guan wasted no time in presenting her side of the story. She asserted that Mrs. Jia had shattered her bracelet during their altercation, yet adamantly denied any culpability. With a mocking tone, she addressed Qiao Xian. I understand your protective stance towards her, Madame Xiao, but I fear my words may fall on deaf ears. Nonetheless, I must speak my truth. Mrs. Jia seethed with frustration. Madame Xiao, I didn't even come into contact with her, let alone her bracelet. Mrs. Guan is fabricating this entire ordeal. Sheyuro, not only was Mrs. Guan falsely accusing her, but she was also dragging Qiao Xian into the fray. Unless Qiao Xian chose to compensate Mrs. Guan, Mrs. Jia faced the looming threat of biased judgment. Regret gnawed at Mrs. Jia. She had sensed Mrs. Guan's ill intentions all along. Why had she agreed to meet with her alone? Even if she insisted on going solo, she could have opted out. Mrs. Guan's face contorted with resentment as she sneered incessantly, masking her true feelings of powerlessness beneath a facade of apparent suffering. Chapter 1848. Venting anger in the midst of the tense exchange, Qiao Xian found herself caught in the crossfire of accusations. Maintaining her composure, Qiao Xian intervened calmly. You both hold differing perspectives. Was there anyone else present to witness the incident? No, Mrs. Guan responded bluntly, without a moment's hesitation. The absence of a third party only reveals her true nature. If there were a witness, they'd surely uphold their dignity, wouldn't they? Mrs. Jia's eyes widened. Was Mrs. Guan indirectly insinuating something about her? It seemed everything was spiraling because of her. That's a challenging situation, Qiao Xian remarked. The absence of a third party means lack of evidence, rendering both your accounts inconclusive. Fan Ruyan interjected with a smile. It seems you might be exhibiting some bias, Madame Xiao. One can't help but understand Mrs. Guan's skepticism. After all, Lord Xiao's reputation as an upright public official is widely known. But are you trying to cover something up? Qiao Xian's smile remained enigmatic. What are you implying, Mrs. Bai? I wouldn't dare to presume too much in your presence. But it's unlikely that Mrs. Guan would simply discard a jade bracelet worth hundreds of taels of silver. It's more plausible that the altercation resulted from a disagreement, perhaps even an accidental push. Surely, you wouldn't exhibit bias towards Mrs. Jia simply because of her status as the deputy prefect's wife, would you? But we must ensure Mrs. Jia isn't unjustly accused. With differing testimonies and no third-party witness, it's unjust to favor either party. What do you mean by something unreasonable? Aren't unexpected events a part of life? Some may feel wronged and resort to framing others. Do you deny the existence of such individuals? I must also inquire, Mrs. Bai, why such evident bias towards Mrs. Guan? Are you deliberately stirring up trouble? Silence fell upon the gathering. Qiao Xian's unexpected outburst directed at Mrs. Bai left everyone taken aback, implicating her in the conflict. Mrs. Guan smirked inwardly, amused by Qiao Xian's apparent lapse in judgment. How could she involve Mrs. Bai like this? As anticipated, Mrs. Bai bristled with indignation. I merely sought to express a balanced perspective. Why accuse me, Madame Xiao? I find your stance anything but impartial. Without a witness, what basis do you have for your claims? Just because you're Mrs. Bai? Xiao Xian's tone sharpened with each word. Madam Xiao, please refrain from overstepping, Mrs. Bai retorted sharply. What? You're allowed to make snide remarks and unfounded accusations, but I can't speak up? Overstepping. How dare you speak to me, the prefect's wife, in such a manner? Xiao Xian's voice dripped with indignation. You a euro, sister. First Madame Fan intervened, sensing the escalating tension. Madame Xiao, this is all a misunderstanding, euro. There's no room for misunderstanding, I'm all ears, Xiao Xian declared icily. Mrs. Bai, apologize. You want me to apologize? Mrs. Bai's disbelief was palpable, her expression incredulous. Fan Ruyan was flabbergasted. She jabbed her finger accusingly. How dare Xiao Xian publicly ridicule her and demand an apology, even if she was sowing discord? Couldn't she allow others to voice their concerns when faced with injustice? Fan Ruyan practically steamed with indignation. You're a why? You've shown blatant disrespect towards me. Xiao Xian's sneer dripped with disdain. I've tolerated your behavior for the sake of the Fan family, but your audacity knows no bounds. Do you believe I have no patience? Or perhaps you believe the Fan family wields unchecked authority in An's province? You a euro, apologize. Otherwise, don't expect me to show you any courtesy. Chapter 1849, Impudence in Your Dreams. Fan Ruyan's voice reverberated, laced with defiance. How dare you? A collective gasp swept through the room as everyone held their breath, their hearts quivering with tension. It was evident to all present that Fan Ruyan had crossed a linea euro. The altercation was none of her concern. She could have simply observed from the sidelines. Instead, she chose to instigate trouble. Who would sympathize with someone openly defiant? It was only fitting for the prefect's wife to rebuke her. Yet, Fan Ruyan seemed incapable of restraint, escalating the situation further. Was she eager to hand her adversaries ammunition against her? This was an unexpected turn of events. Those anticipating embarrassment for Fan Ruyan found themselves pleasantly surprised a euro, while many were eager spectators of the unfolding drama, their satisfaction outweighing any concern for the parties involved. First Madame Fan harbored no fondness for the prefect's wife, but her disdain for her sister-in-law ran deeper still. Exchanging a knowing glance with second Mrs. Fan, she rose to defuse the tension. Madame Xiao, my sister is known for her forthright nature. She did not intend any disrespect towards you. Please forgive her. Sister, please refrain. Let's not exacerbate the situation with rash behavior. Yes, let's focus on Mrs. Guan and Mrs. Jia's matter. Mrs. Guan's satisfaction was palpable. She relished the prospect of Xiao Xian and the Fan family amplifying the dispute. I am in no rush, nor do I seek retribution against Mrs. Bai. First Madame Fan and second Mrs. Fan seethed with anger, eager to silence Mrs. Guan. Her words played right into Fan Ruyan's hands, yet Xiao Xian remained unfazed. Mrs. Bai, are you behaving like a child? How dare you speak rudely and spout nonsense before me? Must I endure the Fan family's brashness and allow you to demean me? Fan Ruyan, I am not obliged to tolerate your insolence. Apologize sincerely and refrain from such behavior in the future. That will resolve this matter. Other Wuxia euro, Fan Ruyan was on the verge of losing her composure. Her sister-in-law's attempts to intervene fell on deaf ears. Otherwise what? What do you intend to do? This is the Fan family. Do you think you can bully us too? First Madame Fan, second Mrs. Fan, did you hear that? The Fan family truly holds sway here. They aren't just forthright. They're domineering. Wuxia, teach her a lesson. Understood, madam. Before anyone could react, Wuxia advanced and delivered a resounding slap to Fan Ruyan's face. The room fell into stunned silence as everyone processed the unexpected turn of events. Pa! Another sharp slap resounded as Wuxia struck Fan Ruyan's other cheek. Ah! Fan Ruyan's shriek pierced the air as she lunged at Wuxia, consumed by fury. How dare you strike me? First Madame Fan and second Mrs. Fan rushed to restrain her, urging her to calm down. No. Stay composed. Someone come quickly. Release me. Fan Ruyan's arrogance was well known. as was her propensity for openly clashing with her sister-in-laws. However, owing to her mother's favoritism, she typically emerged victorious regardless of the circumstances. Years of such dynamics had shaped her into a particular kind of individual. Qiao Xian's words had ignited a simmering rage within her, and the 2 slaps had pushed her beyond rationality. Her cheeks burned with humiliation, her mind ablaze with fury. She was consumed by an overwhelming desire for retaliation. Even the prefect's wife could not degrade her in such a manner. Chapter 1850. Impulse Fan Ruyan writhed in resistance, her gaze fixed on Qiao Xian with defiance. Qiao Xian's voice sliced through the tension, cold and unyielding. Apologize. How dare you glare at me? Do you intend to strike me? Release her and let her offer her apology. But they couldn't simply release her. First, Madame Fan instructed someone to escort Fan Ruyan away, but Qiao Xian intervened. Halt! Fan Ruyan will not depart until she has extended her apology. How dare you? Do you show no regard for me, the prefect's wife? First, Madame Fan faltered. Madame Xiao Ayuro, her sister-in-law, had long been accustomed to having her way. Previously, the prefect's wife held little sway in her presence. Therefore, in a reflexive attempt to prevent any further embarrassment to the Fan family, first Madame Fan sought to diffuse the situation by attending to her sister-in-law's needs, disregarding any potential offense to the prefect's wife. However, while she chose to overlook it, Qiao Xian did not. Qiao Xian had heard of the treatment received by previous prefects' spouses in An's province. She felt both incredulous and disheartened. Those dispatched here for administrative duties lacked influential connections. They were compelled to rely on the local elite families. Even if they suffered hidden injustices, they could do naught but endure. However, she couldn't let such an incident pass unchallenged. Release her. Qiao Xian's command sliced through the tension like a blade. The 2 maids, already apprehensive of their mistress, trembled under Qiao Xian's stern rebuke. They relinquished their hold, allowing Fan Ruyan to break free and rush toward Qiao Xian. In the midst of gasps and murmurs from the onlookers, Qiao Xian raised an imperious hand. With a frigid gaze fixed on her, Fan Ruyan's arm froze mid-air. The sight of Qiao Xian's icy composure instilled a sudden fear in her, halting the intended strike. Caught between impulse and apprehension, Fan Ruyan hesitated. She couldn't bring herself to carry out the slap, knowing the repercussions of assaulting the prefect's wife in public. Even her own mother's intervention would be futile if such a scene unfolded. The prefect's wife might demand an apology, or even imprisonment. Fan Ruyan's arm remained rigid, neither moving forward nor retreating. She stood frozen in embarrassment and apprehension. Qiao Xian, unmoved by the spectacle, remarked coldly, "Mrs. Bai, you certainly are remarkable." First Madame Fan intervened swiftly, restraining Fan Ruyan, and coaxing her to lower her hand. She recognized the folly of her impulsive action, which only served to compound her embarrassment. "Madame Xiao, please understand. It was a momentary lapse of judgment." Thankfully, she regained her senses promptly. "Please forgive her, Madame Xiao. Sister, offer your apology to Madame Xiao." Apologizing was inevitable at this point. Her impulsive behavior had not only harmed herself, but also brought disgrace upon others. First Madame Fan wished she could give her sister-in-law a sound scolding as well. Qiao Xian regarded them with contempt, sneering disdainfully. The Fan family, one of the most prominent in An's province, who wouldn't be eager to curry favor with you? Apologize? I am not worthy of such grace. Mrs. Jia, let us depart. We wouldn't want the Fan family to lament our departure and accuse us of theft. Yes, Madame Xiao. Chapter 1851. Reprimand. Aya, please reconsider. First Madame Fan and second Mrs. Fan couldn't bear to see Qiao Xian walk away like this. With so many eyes upon them, Fan Ruyan's refusal to apologize only worsened matters. If Madame Xiao sought retribution, it could spell trouble for their family. Sister, a sincere apology is in order. We acknowledge our mistake. Madame Xiao, we implore you to grant the Fan family a chance to make amends. Please show mercy, Madame Xiao. The two madams of the Fan family were visibly distressed. With every plea for leniency, they cast pleading glances at Fan Ruyan, silently urging her to make amends swiftly. Fan Ruyan clenched her fists, her face flushing with embarrassment and frustration. She had never felt so humiliated. Apologizing was not in her nature, especially not in front of such a crowd. But she understood the necessity of swallowing her pride in this moment to spare her family from further disgrace. Madame Xiao was notoriously vindictive, and provoking her further would only invite disaster. As she prepared to swallow her pride and issue an apology, Mrs. Guan, who had remained silent until now, interjected. Madame Xiao, let's not escalate this any further. You're well aware of your influence. There's no need to assert dominance at every turn. This is about a bracelet, isn't it? Dragging innocent parties like Mrs. Bai into this only complicates matters. Are you attempting to manipulate the situation to your advantage, perhaps implicating Mrs. Jia? It's a cunning move, I must admit. Your strategic acumen is truly remarkable. Fan Ruyan adamantly refused to apologize to Qiao Xian. Instead, her eyes flashed with defiance as she retorted. I agree. We've yet to unravel the mystery of the bracelet. Are you just going to ignore it? Enough. Qiao Xian's voice cut through the tension. Your disrespect towards me won't go unnoticed. With all these witnesses, are you attempting to deceive or manipulate the truth? I may not hold much sway, but I won't be bullied so easily. Today's events demand seriousness. My position as the prefect's wife is at stake. Turning his gaze to Mrs. Guan, Qiao Xian's tone turned icy. And you? Your peculiar manner of speaking betrays your arrogance. I find Mrs. Jia far more reliable than you. Why the rush? We must delve deeper into your intentions. If you doubt our Lord's judgment, feel free to appeal to the higher court, unimpeded. Why the hesitation? It's intriguing. You seem eager to dismiss this without evidence or witnesses. Your status should remind you to act with restraint. If you dare to display such rudeness and arrogance again, you'll find it insufficient. Mrs. Guan flushed with indignation. You a Euro. It's not your place to speak in my presence. Keep silent and step aside. Your time will come. Qiao Xian interjected sharply. Any further utterance from you will result in the same treatment. Furious, ashamed, and seething with anger, Mrs. Guan trembled slightly, but she dared not voice another word. If even Fan Ruyan could be struck, she stood no chance. To face such humiliation would be futile. A sudden realization struck Hera Euro. Hadn't she once wielded arrogance and dominance just as flagrantly? Chapter 1852. Not accepting as long as she found joy and contentment. The opinions of other scribes' wives were inconsequential to her. She remained indifferent, unconcerned, an apathetic Euro, but now, with her status diminished, she experienced the discomfort of this indifference. This didn't signify regret for her past actions. Rather, she harbored resentment toward Xiao Yunduan for stripping her husband of his position as deputy prefect. Having dealt with Mrs. Guan, Qiao Xian's gaze turned coldly to Fan Ruyan. Mrs. Bai, what is your course of action? Fan Ruyan felt a rush of blood to her head, her mind reeling. Mrs. Guan's rebuke felt like a personal reprimand, as she had just spoken up on Fan Ruyan's behalf. Madame Xiao showed no mercy to the Fan family. I was mistaken. I shouldn't have acted impulsively. Madame Xiao, I beg your forgiveness. Sayuro. Qiao Xian sneered. Am the one seething with anger and resorting to bullying. Fan Ruyan shot him a glare before swiftly averting her eyes, seething with even more rage. She had struggled to utter those words, yet Qiao Xian dismissed them with disdain. His mockery only fueled her fury further. If given the chance, she would retract her apology without a moment's hesitation. Fan Ruyan couldn't help but feel utterly worthless in this moment. Madame Xiao's intent to provoke trouble was glaringly obvious, and the outcome would remain unchanged regardless of whether she apologized or not. So why subject herself to such humiliation willingly? Had she apologized to Mrs. Guan, Qiao Xian wouldn't have relented either way. Yet she chose to follow suit, mirroring Mrs. Guan's behavior and earning nothing but disdain. It was only when she pushed them too far that she finally offered an apology, Inviting further moquerie, none of the madams dared to betray their emotions. Offending the Fan family was out of the question for them. And the same applied to Madame Xiao. Qiao Xian's sneer cut through the tense silence. You're insolent, overbearing, contentious, and braggadocious. Had I been even slightly weaker, you might have bested me. Do you truly believe a mere apology suffices? Will anyone dare to behave like this in my presence from now on? At the very least, they can choose not to apologize or bow, can't they? The two madams of the Fan family had initially intended to plead for leniency, but they found themselves speechless. Fan Ruyan's conviction that Qiao Xian was deliberately stirring up trouble only strengthened. The ladies begrudgingly acknowledged that Madame Xiao held the upper hand. After all, she was the wife of the prefect. While the Fan family wielded considerable influence, it wasn't what it used to be. In the past, they could afford to disregard the prefect's wife, but with the current holder of that position, the dynamics had shifted. Over the years, Fan Ruyan's haughty demeanor had alienated many. Numerous individuals harbored ill will towards her and relished in her downfall. Though they didn't vocalize their satisfaction, their expressions betrayed their sentiments. Catching sight of their smug looks only deepened Fan Ruyan's embarrassment. Convinced that Qiao Xian orchestrated this ordeal deliberately, Fan Ruyan resolved not to endure further humiliation here, regardless of the consequences. Besides, she had always been timid, preferring to shirk responsibility and foist it onto others. If she could evade blame, she would. If not, she'd simply delegate the cleanup to her two sister-in-laws without a second thought. She had no qualms about standing before her mother and berating her sister-in-laws for their perceived sluggishness and thoroughness in resolving her messes. She'd even brazenly accused them of harboring ulterior motives against her. Chapter 1853. Berating it remained unchanged. Realizing she couldn't gain an upper hand and would only face humiliation, Fan Ruyan promptly resigned, shirking her responsibilities. Madame Xiao, if you're dissatisfied, feel free to take it up with our family. As the wife of the prefect, who could dare to oppose you? Moreover, your eloquence is unmatched. With those words, Fan Ruyan turned on her heels and stormed off. The two madams of the Fan family exchanged glances, their faces draining of color, their expressions contorting into a mixture of rage and disgust. Their sister-in-law's penchant for stirring up trouble had resurfaced once more, leaving them to deal with the aftermath. Dealing with other matters was one thing. After all, there was hardly anything in Anne's province that the Fan family couldn't handle. But tangling with the prefect's wife? That was an entirely different matter. Madame Xiao, the Fan family undeniably holds great influence in Anne's province. Their power is unquestionable. As the wife of the prefect, I am but a mere outsider in your esteemed family. With a disdainful sneer, Qiao Xian rose from her seat and exited alongside Mrs. Jia. Mrs. Jia's expression mirrored her dissatisfaction. The Fan family had overstepped their bounds. While it was common knowledge that the three major families were domineering, Mrs. Jia had never experienced it firsthand until now, leaving her thoroughly disheartened. Madame Xiao, please wait. First Madame Fan interjected, attempting to defuse the tension with a smile. But Qiao Xian cut her off sharply, pointing an accusatory finger. Silence! How dare you impede me? You think I'm easy prey? Your family's insolence towards me is intolerable. You can't manage your own kin, yet you seek to control me? First Madame Fan, your motives are transparent. I didn't mean €. Then step aside, or face the consequences. Qiao Xian's threat hung in the air as she and Mrs. Jia departed, leaving First Madame Fan and her sister-in-law stunned. A heavy silence enveloped the room as everyone exchanged uneasy glances. They had learned their lesson. The prefect and his wife were not to be trifled with. The atmosphere in Anne's prefecture had shifted, and everyone realized they needed to tread carefully to avoid trouble. At least until the prefect's tenure came to an end. Meanwhile, Mrs. Guan couldn't contain her delight. The gleam in her eyes and the curve of her lips betrayed her satisfaction. She secretly hoped for discord between the Fan family and Qiao Xian, envisioning potential alliances in her favor. They might even succeed in enlisting the Mei family and the Hua family, leveraging their connections and familial ties. Unless Lord Xiao wished to stir up trouble in An's province, he would surely reconsider his stance. As Mrs. Guan entertained these thoughts, she felt a surge of satisfaction. She even entertained the possibility of her old master reclaiming the position of deputy prefect Euro. But when first Madame Fan caught sight of the smug expression on Mrs. Guan's face, she felt a twinge of irritation, as though she had swallowed a fly. She clenched her teeth, cursing silently. If only she hadn't caused such a commotion. Things wouldn't have spiraled out of control like this. First Madame Fan couldn't tolerate Mrs. Guan's gloating any longer, so she sighed and addressed her. I didn't anticipate things unfolding like this. You'll need to take care of your bracelet. Mrs. Guan's smile faltered, her heart sinking. 400 taels of silver. That was no small sum. Forced to maintain her composure, she responded. Thank you for the reminder, First Madame Fan. I cannot bear this loss alone. I must seek compensation from someone. Chapter 1854. You're too much today. First Madame Fan's smile was tinged with irony. Compensation? Who would she seek compensation from without evidence? Unless Madame Xiao intervened and pressured Mrs. Jia into admitting defeat. But was that a feasible outcome? Madame Xiao had stormed out in a fit of anger, signaling the end of the banquet. The two madames of the Fan family offered profuse apologies. Second Mrs. Fan escorted them out, while First Madame Fan hastened to find Fan Ruyan. Meanwhile, Old Lady Fan was enjoying her lunch. Fan Ruyan, always mindful of her mother's needs, wouldn't dare disturb her during this time. Hence, First Madame Fan easily intercepted her in her chamber. The atmosphere in the room was tense and subdued. The maidservants held their breaths, cowering in fear, their heads bowed in anticipation of reprimand. Fan Ruyan shot a glare at First Madame Fan. Sister-in-law, what brings you here? Have you dealt with that troublemaker? First Madame Fan's lips curved into a sneer. Troublemaker? It seems you're the one causing the most trouble. All of you leave, she commanded the maidservants. Casting furtive glances at Fan Ruyan, the maidservants discerned her dark expression but obediently complied, hastening to vacate the room. First Madame Fan's voice sliced through the tension like ice. You've crossed the line. What did you just say? You a Euro? Fan Ruyan began, her voice rising. Silence. First Madame Fan's palm crashed down on the coffee table, her tone scathing. Fan Ruyan, you are a member of the Fan family. Show some restraint. If you're capable of causing trouble, then resolve it yourself. I owe you nothing. I'll clean up your mess when we return. I've had enough of your antics. Any mishap today will spell disaster for the Fan family. Are you oblivious to that fact? And what noble intentions does Mrs. Guan harbor? Her husband faltered due to his own shortcomings, and now she seeks to stir up trouble without cause. What's your stake in this? What makes you so special? Now that things have soured, you plan to abandon ship, leaving the fallout for me and second sister-in-law to handle? Your scheme is quite cunning. Euro Fan Ruyan stammered, her eyes wide with disbelief, her breaths coming in ragged gasps. She struggled to formulate a response, taken aback by her sister-in-law's audacity. First Madame Fan relished the shock on Fan Ruyan's face. Let me make this clear. I want to assist you in resolving this mess today. Go apologize to Madame Xiao. And make sure you do it with genuine humility and sincerity. Don't forget, you're meant to beg for forgiveness, not disgust her. Shut up. Fan Ruyan's scream reverberated, her chest heaving with emotion. How dare you speak to me like that? Why wouldn't I? First Madame Fan's voice remained cold and composed. I'm your sister-in-law and the senior daughter-in-law of the Fan family. You've implicated the entire family, so why shouldn't I hold you accountable? Fan Ruyan. Euro in theory, this response seemed justified, but to Fan Ruyan, it felt like a scathing rebuke. She seethed with anger, struggling to find a rebuttal. As she opened her mouth to retaliate, she realized she couldn't articulate the pent-up frustration and hurt within her. A pang of anguish pierced her heart, and a sense of injustice washed over her. You always pretend to be righteous and virtuous, but I never imagined you harbored such thoughts. I see now. You've despised me all along, eager to rid me from this household. But this is my family too. My mother wanted me to stay. Who are you to look down on me? You think you can control me? No chance. With tears streaming down her cheeks, Fan Ruyin sniffled and wiped her eyes. Turning on her heels, she fled straight to Old Lady Fan's quarters. Chapter 1855. Let her sue. First Madame Fan's lips curved into a cold smile as she leisurely sipped her tea. First Madame Fan and second Mrs. Yuezhing couldn't shake off their nerves when Fan Ruyin threatened to seek Old Lady Fan's intervention. They dreaded the prospect of having to bow their heads, no matter how unjust they felt, fearing that Fan Ruyin would escalate the matter to Old Lady Fan. Yet today, First Madame Fan chose to disregard it, showing a remarkable indifference. She was free to act as she pleased. Madame Lady Qiao had endured years of grievances. Could she be expected to endure them indefinitely? Old Lady Fan was still robust and healthy, potentially living for another decade or even two. But Madame Lady Qiao refused to tolerate this suffering any longer. It was time to confront the situation head-on and chart a new course for herself. From now on, whoever instigated trouble would be responsible for resolving it. After draining her tea, First Madame Fan received Old Lady Fan's invitation. She offered a polite smile. I'll be there shortly. Please wait for me. Before seeking out Fan Ruyin, she had dispatched someone to summon the two patriarchs back. She intended to address the issue in their presence. Both of the Fan family's patriarchs were present at the shop when they received word of an urgent matter at home. Without hesitation, they hastened back to the residence. Accompanied by First Madame Fan and Second Mrs. Fan, they proceeded to Old Lady Fan's chambers. Fan Ruyin had been nestled in Old Lady Fan's embrace, her tears flowing freely, eliciting a pang of sympathy from the elderly matriarch. Angrily awaiting First Madame Fan's arrival, she expected retribution for her grievances. Yet to her surprise, no one responded to her calls, despite repeating them 3 or 4 times. Exhausted from her tearful ordeal, Fan Ruyin's eyes were now bloodshot as she cast a venomous glare at First Madame Fan upon her entrance. Meanwhile, Old Lady Fan's fury reached a boiling point as she scolded. Your temper is intolerable. You're meant to be the matriarch of this household, yet I can't even summon you. This is unacceptable. The first Old Master Fan was taken aback. Mother, what's happened? Have the audacity to ask. Inquire about your daughter-in-law's actions. Old Lady Fan bellowed furiously. Kneel. First Madame Fan's lip curled into a disdainful sneer. Is it not excessive to show such bias? Listen. Listen. Old Lady Fan's voice trembled with emotion. Observe closely. She's on the verge of rebellion. First Madame Fan's voice rang out, determined and resolute. Old Lady Fan, you must hear me out. If you refuse to listen and insist on blaming me, believing I'm faultless and never at fault, then why don't we part ways? I won't dare to intervene in any family matters anymore. What did you just say? Elder sister-in-law. You're defying authority. A Euro chaos reigned within the Fan clan. Amidst the turmoil, Fan Ruyin's tears flowed anew, a sense of injustice overwhelming her. She lamented her plight, bemoaning how her mother had kept her at home out of love and filial piety, only for her to become a target of scorn and unwanted trouble. Old Lady Fan seethed with fury at her eldest daughter-in-law's insubordination. Instead of humbling herself and seeking forgiveness, she brazenly suggested a split. It was outright rebellion, further compounded by her incessant shouts and rebukes. First Madame Fan couldn't hold back her tears, recalling the years of grievances she endured. Second Mrs. Fan, initially inclined to reason with her, found herself overwhelmed with empathy, sharing in her sorrow. The two patriarchs of the Fan family attempted to intervene, but found themselves at a loss for words, wishing they had more mouths to speak with. They were exhausted and overwhelmed. In times past, such a situation had never arisen. First Madame Fan and Second Mrs. Fan would capitulate, bowing their heads in submission, offering apologies and assurances. Once Old Lady Fan had finished reprimanding them, she would show mercy and extend forgiveness, bringing an end to the ordeal. Chapter 1856. Fainted this time. First Madam Fan and second Mrs. Fan clenched their jaws, refusing to offer apologies. Surrendering now would mean a lifetime of submission. Old Lady Fan, unaccustomed to such defiance, was profoundly affected by their refusal. So consumed with rage was she that she collapsed before she could regain her breath. The room descended into chaos once more. Mother! Mother! Help! Ah! Mother! Someone! We need help! Fetch a doctor! Fan Ruyan shook Madam Lady Chiao and cried out, Mother! Then, without a second thought, she turned towards First Madam Fan and slapped her across the face. This is all because of you. First Madam Fan seized her hand and retaliated with a fierce slap, causing Fan Ruyan to recoil in pain. She pointed accusingly. Enough! If you hadn't caused trouble, none of this would have happened. You show no remorse and only grow more insolent. Take a good look at yourself. Tears streamed down Fan Ruyan's cheeks. Elder brother, second brother, are you going to stand idly by while I'm treated like this? Are you failing, Mother? You're the one who provoked Mother to this point. Yet you have the audacity to shed tears? Why? Not content with provoking Mother, you've also incited your brothers? Fan Ruyan, you've caused utter chaos. You a Euro, enough arguing. First Old Master Fan's voice trembled with distress. With a stern expression he added, Mother is in this state, and yet you're still bickering. If anyone persists in arguing, leave this room. First Madam Fan fell silent, heeding her father-in-law's words. However, Fan Ruyan couldn't shake the feeling that despite not being singled out by name, her elder brother's admonishment was directed at her. He had never reprimanded her like this before. In the past, he would have comforted her long ago. Feeling a surge of resentment and sorrow, Fan Ruyan ceased her protests but remained seated, tears still streaming down her cheeks. First Old Master Fan's distress deepened at the sight. He called out twice for her to stop crying, but Fan Ruyan ignored him, her sobbing unabated. Furrowing his brow, First Old Master Fan grew increasingly frustrated. She wasn't a young teenager but a woman in her 30s. What reason did she have to cry? The doctor would arrive soon, but she refused to leave, making it difficult for others to attend to her. First Madam Fan's words cut through the air with icy precision. You'll cry too when the doctor arrives. Let everyone witness how the lady of the Fan family appears when she sheds tears. Fan Ruyan's tears ceased, replaced by a glare fixed on First Madam Fan. Thankfully, Old Lady Fan's fainting spell was merely due to a temporary lack of blood flow. The doctor administered medication to cool her system and alleviate liver discomfort, advising her to maintain a light diet and avoid anger. With his instructions given, he took his leave. A collective sigh of relief filled the room. Upon regaining consciousness, Old Lady Fan cast a piercing gaze at First Madam Fan and second Mrs. Yuezheng. First Old Master Fan, seeking to console her, inquired about the day's events. His inquiry only served to reignite Old Lady Fan's ire. She rebuked him for his lack of filial piety, questioning why he would bother to ask. Shouldn't he be focusing on teaching First Madam Fan a lesson and compelling her to kneel and apologize? Furthermore, his second son's wife was not to be spared either. It was high time she faced consequences too. First Madam Fan's demeanor turned grave. Mother, if we don't explain today's events, it will spell trouble for the entire Fan family. Are you certain you don't wish to hear it? The two patriarchs of the Fan family were taken aback by the gravity of the situation. Chapter 1857. Not backing down. Fan Ruyan's voice reverberated, charged with indignation. Stop trying to frighten Mother. She's just recovered, and you're scaring her again. What's your intention? No one can match your skills, can they? First Madam Fan retorted with a sneer. Over the years, you've engaged in plenty of such antics. I don't wish to dwell on the past, but today's events must be clarified. Moving forward, there must be order in this household. Suddenly, Fan Ruyan turned towards Old Lady Fan, her expression pleading. You're defying authority. Mother, please don't be upset. First Old Master Fan intervened hastily. Why don't you hear them out first? Then we can discuss how to address the situation. What do you say? Let's not let anger cloud our judgment. Second old master Fan added his voice to the plea. Indeed, mother. If you faint again, it will harm your health. Wary of any further physical strain, old lady Fan shot a fierce glare at the two patriarchs but managed to suppress her anger. Fine, tell me. I want to hear your side of the story. Otherwise, you might think I'm showing favoritism and not allowing you to speak. Internally, First Madam Fan couldn't help but think, how self-righteous you are. Do you not realize your own bias? First Madam Fan recounted the events of the day, detailing every occurrence. Fan Ruyan, caught off guard by her mother's acquiescence, simmered with frustration, itching to interject and offer rebuttals. Yet, she knew it was futile. First Madam Fan was too enraged to heed any pleas for silence. But even as Fan Ruyan bristled, First Old Master Fan's attempts to intervene fell on deaf ears. She wouldn't listen to him, let alone First Madam Fan. Old Lady Fan remained impassive, her expression cool and detached, offering no indication of stopping Fan Ruyan's impending outburst. Finally, First Madam Fan concluded her account, visibly drained. Madam Xiao stormed off today, incensed. Lord Xiao has garnered considerable support in An's province. His methods are well known, and we stand no chance against him. Even if we remain unconvinced, resistance is futile. None can deny the implications of Madame Xiao's departure. It's clear I acted deliberately. We must consider the potential repercussions of provoking her wrath. As officials, they hold power over us as citizens. Our Fan family is no match for Lord Xiao in a direct confrontation. Sister-in-law acted rashly. I urged her to retract and apologize. What's wrong with that? Direct apology signifies genuine remorse. Fan Ruyan sneered. Sister-in-law, are you so easily rattled by mere words? Ridiculous. Our Fan family is flourishing, abiding by the laws of the Qin dynasty. The prefect should tread carefully before crossing us. As for me, I simply believe Mrs. Guan speaks the truth. Is it wrong to defend her? Otherwise, Madame Xiao may well side with Mrs. Jia. She can voice her opinions, yet I can't? How tyrannical. She's narrow-minded and incapable of accepting differing viewpoints. And somehow it's my fault? Sister-in-law, your bias couldn't be more apparent. Don't forget, we're family. Don't forget that Xiao just humiliated our family. Even if you cozy up to him like this, he might still harbor disdain for you. I can sense your disdain for me growing stronger by the day. First Madam Fan was left speechless. She felt a surge of both anger and anxiety. She hadn't anticipated her sister-in-law's obstinance. She could twist the truth so convincingly, painting herself as the defender of the Fan family, while portraying First Madam Fan as the betrayer. Chapter 1858. Confounded First Old Master Fan, and the others were left utterly speechless. The two patriarchs of the Fan family had no grievances about their detention in the prefect's office. Even if they did, they dared not voice them. After all, Lord Xiao was aware of their situation. Though the fine of 1,000 taels of silver was burdensome, they didn't dare to protest. Their sister shouldn't have provoked Madame Xiao like €30. What's the point? The Fan family had ample goods to sell, and they were already busy enough. If officials kept hindering their work with constant scrutiny, their stock would pile up in the warehouses, risking spoilage. The Fan family couldn't afford such losses. First Old Master Fan couldn't help but chide Fan Ruyan, feeling she was being stubborn for no reason. There was nothing to gain from angering Madame Xiao. Second Old Master Fan echoed his sentiments. Second Mrs. Fan secretly concurred with her husband's assessment. Fan Ruyan, seething with anger, launched into another tirade, accusing them of looking down on her and plotting to exile her. The siblings and sister-in-law found themselves embroiled in yet another heated argument. Old Lady Fan, incensed by her daughters-in-law's defiance, cared not for right or wrong. Since they dared to oppose her today, she resolved to teach them a harsh lesson. What was so impressive about Madame Xiao, anyway? Ruyan had a point. Was she entitled to be biased and silence dissent? Furthermore, today's banquet seemed designed to antagonize her. They wanted her to understand that the Fan clan wouldn't tolerate disrespect. Lord Xiao hadn't demanded anything from the Fan family. Had the Fan family demanded anything from him? He had no right to disgrace them. Old Lady Fan scolded her son and daughter-in-law, siding with Fan Ruyan. Not only did she refrain from blaming her, but she also offered comfort. Instead, she chastised First Madame Fan for making a mountain out of a molehill, questioning her motives. First Madame Fan nearly exploded with fury. The two patriarchs felt a chill in their hearts. They hadn't anticipated their sister's confusion or their mother's befuddlement. Didn't they realize an arm couldn't compare to a thigh? First Madame Fan cautioned them that allowing her to persist would embolden her further. Sooner or later, she'd lead the Fan family astray. Consequently, they tacitly agreed not to yield this time. Since First Madame Fan had made the first move, there was no need to capitulate. They might as well crush her outright to prevent future regrets. Deep down, the two brothers harbored long-standing dissatisfaction with their sister. For years, their mother had wielded authoritarian control, making decisions without question. Yet this sister of theirs persistently caused trouble. After enduring so much, anyone would reach their breaking point. Since the dam had burst today, there was no reason to plug the hole. Both families were resolute. Initially furious, Old Lady Fan soon found herself powerless after several rounds of argument. Continuing to shield her daughter would only drive a wedge between her and her Sansiro, a scenario Old Lady Fan dreaded. Her expression darkened, and she remained silent. Fan Ruyan excelled at manipulation and sophistry. In terms of logic, she couldn't hold a candle to her. No matter how vehemently she argued she was aiding Qiao Xian, or that Qiao Xian was being petty, it wouldn't change the fact that she had offended the prefect's wife, potentially putting the Fan family in jeopardy. It fell upon her to rectify this mess. No one was obligated to come to her defense. In short, First Madame Fan and Second Mrs. Fan were prepared to resign this time. Chapter 1859. This must be Lord Xiao's counterattack, of course. Fan Ruyan refused to admit fault and apologize. Instead, she resumed crying, lamenting how her brother and sister-in-law were cruel and heartless. It was evident they didn't regard her as family, and were purposefully tormenting Hera. The situation descended into chaos. In the end, everyone was exasperated, and the matter remained unresolved. No one was content. First Old Master Fan and Second Old Master Fan felt too ashamed to compel their wives to apologize on behalf of their sister. None of their actions made sense. They were at an impasse, but little did they know, news of the dispute had spread. The following day, thugs descended upon the Fan family's rice shop, silk shop, restaurant, and several other establishments, disrupting business operations. The shopkeeper, known for his temper, clashed with the intruders, further aggravating the situation. He reported the incident to the authorities, but help arrived slowly from the yamen. By the time officials arrived, the troublemakers had dispersed. Instead of apprehending them, the officials interrogated the shopkeeper with grave expressions. The majority of the Fan family's shopkeepers and workers, filled with confidence and pride, possessed less than pleasant temperaments. Witnessing the authorities' lack of action, they couldn't help but express their frustration in a manner lacking decorum. In the end, the officials erupted in anger, chastising them for being too arrogant and lawless. It became evident that the Fan family was just as haughty. If they were so superior, why not don their official attire and act as they pleased within the government office? The shopkeeper and his assistants were utterly bewildered by the situation. It dawned on them only then that the prefect was no longer the prefect, and the government office had undergone a transformation. Quickly they offered profuse apologies, trying to rectify the situation. They were scolded without cause and warned to conduct themselves as businessmen, to eschew arrogance and domineering behavior. After all, being amiable was the key to profitability, wasn't it? The officials' tyrannical and unreasonable behavior before them hinted at how they might treat ordinary customers. Even if it was a shop belonging to the prestigious Fan clan, they were expected to adhere to established regulations. Anne's prefecture city was not theirs to dictate terms. These words were spoken publicly, and countless bystanders absorbed them. The shop assistant felt dumbfounded and a tad fearful. He couldn't fathom why these officials were behaving so audaciously in the esteemed Fan family's establishment. Why didn't they show him any respect? However, the shopkeeper grasped the gravity of the situation and grew uneasy. It was clear that the main branch had somehow offended the former prefect. This was Amanusayuro bowing deeply. The shopkeeper issued apologies, eager to usher the officials away swiftly. He dared not meet the gaze of onlookers or engage in hushed conversations. After entrusting the shop to his staff, the shopkeeper hastened to the Fan family residence to deliver his report. Still unaware of the events transpiring, the family needed to be informed promptly, regardless of the importance of the matter. They needed a strategy. Several other shopkeepers had the same notion. It felt somewhat awkward for everyone to convene at the main household. As they exchanged accounts of what had occurred, an air of unease settled over the group. The hearts of first Old Master Fan and second Old Master Fan sank. This was undoubtedly Lord Xiao's retaliatory strike. Madame Xiao had been mistreated and embarrassed, prompting Lord Xiao to launch a swift counteroffensive against the Fan family. Otherwise, it was too coincidental for those troublemakers to disrupt business at the Fan family shops today. Dependent on the government for their livelihoods, those thugs wouldn't dare disregard the casual, indifferent hints from a Constable. Chapter 1860. Clearly a troublemaker. Furthermore, highway robbery seemed to be a favored pastime for those scoundrels. It wouldn't do to air their dirty laundry in public. How could first Old Master Fan and second Old Master Fan confess to the shopkeepers that their sister had provoked Madame Xiao, leading to her retaliatory actions? All they could do was offer reassurance to the shopkeepers, urging them not to fret. If the issue wasn't significant, the Fan family would resolve it swiftly. However, to forestall any potential trouble, they would advise their employees to be more alert and proactive. Moreover, they should strive to avoid confrontation. If troublemakers showed up, they should be promptly escorted off the premises, regardless of the cost. Upon hearing this, the shopkeepers grew increasingly uneasy. They were astute individuals who could discern that something significant must have occurred. The more evasive their employers' responses, the graver the situation. Exchanging glances, the shopkeepers refrained from asking further questions. With the proprietors adopting such a stance, even if they inquired, they wouldn't receive the true reason. Thus, they resigned themselves to following their boss's instructions. Once the shopkeepers had departed, the expressions of the two old masters of the Fan family soured, their anger bubbling to the surface. How could this happen? Why are you so surprised? Second Old Master Fan cast a glance at his elder brother. That's Madame Xiao for you. Can Lord Xiao tolerate someone bullying or humiliating his wife? It's no different from a slap in the face. And perhaps he's harbored animosity toward our family for some time. This time, he even went out of his way to give them a handle against Himayuro's sister-in-law. May have a point. Sigh. But was she really a sister? She seemed more like a troublemaker. It wasn't just a matter of tolerating or despising her. It was about acting in the family's best interest. She had always been headstrong, disregarding the consequences of her actions. In the past, that was acceptable. After all, in Anne's province, the Fan family didn't need to kowtow to anyone. Even now they didn't need to. Except for Lord Xiao, who was different from previous prefect lords. But to provoke someone they couldn't afford to offend? Wasn't that reckless? What could the Fan family do? Lord Xiao had wealth, power, and held a significant government position. Did she lack common sense? The brothers couldn't speak ill of their sister too much. After a sigh and some discussion, they sought out their mother. Old Lady Fan was both shocked and furious upon hearing the news. This Lord Xiao is despicable. He's abusing his authority for personal vendettas, using his position to exact revenge. Is there no justice in this world? Does he think the Fan family is an easy target? The two brothers exchanged silent glances. It seemed they understood the roots of their sister's temperament. Blaming her alone wasn't entirely fair. Mom, let's handle this quietly. Don't spread the word. Lord Xiao might not be involved, first Old Master Fan suggested. Humph. Old Lady Fan scoffed. Do you think I'm naive? I can see through it. First Old Master Fan rubbed his tired forehead. Even if that's the case without evidence, accusing an official falsely is a serious offense. When Lord Xiao sends officials to our door to arrest or punish, it'll be within his rights. Old Lady Fan was about to rail against Lord Xiao, but she halted, realizing that Lord Xiao was quite audacious. Chapter 1861. Is the Fan family that shameless? Is there no one who can rein him in? Old Lady Fan expressed her dissatisfaction. Then a sneer crossed her face. He's just a disgraced official banished from the capital. I've heard he's clashed with the nobility there, and holds a middling position. Who doesn't know his background and who fears him? Prepare a lavish gift and head to Huaishi province to meet the Lord. Let's see how he reacts when we bring Lord Xiao down. I'm curious to know. The two old masters exchanged puzzled glances. What was their mother thinking? An's province was the most remote region in Huaishi province, separated by rugged mountains and difficult terrain. It had long been infested with bandits, earning a reputation as a lawless area. The provincial capital rarely paid it any attention. Even taxes were scarcely collected. The local officials were hardly ever bothered unless something major happened. Sending them to the provincial capital to confront the prefectural magistrate seemed like a fool's errand. The magistrate would likely be grateful as long as nothing went wrong in An's province. Touching the affairs of An's province would be the last thing on his mind. It seemed rather impractical and futile for the Fan family to try to assert themselves in this manner. The Fan family held considerable influence in An's province, but their power didn't extend as easily to the provincial capital. Gaining access to the prefectural magistrate's office, let alone influencing his decisions, would be no simple feat. Had their mother lost her senses? First Old Master Fan and Second Old Master Fan felt a heavy sense of dismay. What was driving their mother to confront the prefect lord so boldly? Was she prepared to engage in a battle of wills with such a powerful figure? Mother, we must consider this carefully. First Old Master Fan began, attempting to reason with her. Our family lacks the necessary connections with the prefect lord. It won't be easy to sway his decisions. We need to approach this situation with caution. Old Lady Fan's tone turned icy. I understand your concerns. You think him being meddlesome and rash. But can't you see that Prefect Xiao is deliberately targeting our family? First he detained you, then he imposed a hefty fine. Madame Xiao is clearly stirring up trouble, and using it as an excuse to interfere with our family's business. Do you truly believe that a mere apology will suffice? I agree, Second Old Master Fan interjected. This prefect seems incredibly vindictive. He won't be satisfied until he sees the downfall of our family, and he can easily find any excuse to target us. Why should we willingly subject ourselves to his bullying? You need to rein in your temper. Old Lady Fan bristled at her son's retort. Don't talk back to me. I mean no disrespect, mother, Second Old Master Fan responded undeterred. But let's be honest. We tried to keep this matter low-key, but it got out somehow. It's not surprising that we face consequences. Besides, if Rian hadn't impulsively intervened at yesterday's banquet, things might not have escalated to this extent. Enough of your lectures. Old Lady Fan snapped. I apologize, mother. I'll stay out of this matter as well, Second Old Master Fan conceded. But regarding your suggestion for elder brother to visit the provincial capital, I must dissent. It's not so simple to gain access to the magistrate's office. We risk only inviting further humiliation. Chapter 1862. I'm not going. This isn't just about humiliation. It's likely to cost us a considerable amount of money, with no guarantee of a favorable outcome. Prefect Xiao may be reasonable, but who knows what kind of person the Lord Prefect is? Remarked Second Old Master Fan, expressing his concerns. Old Lady Fan's anger flared. You. Are your wife behind this? How dare you speak to me like that? You ungrateful son. The accusation caught Second Old Master Fan off guard. Mother, what are you implying? I haven't discussed this matter with her at all. And she wouldn't have the audacity. Old Lady Fan sneered, suspicion evident in her eyes. Behind my back, who's to say you aren't plotting against me? Second Old Master Fan fell silent, his expression darkening. Attempting to diffuse the tension, First Old Master Fan interjected. Mother, let's focus on the issue at hand. Old Lady Fan fixed him with a stern gaze. Are you blaming me now? Are you and your brother teaming up against me? First Old Master Fan. For the first time, the brothers felt that their mother was really senile and could not communicate at all. First Old Master Fan realized that appeasing Xiao Yunduan was crucial to protect the family's interests. He understood the delicate balance between maintaining their dignity and avoiding further conflict with the prefect's office. Despite his mother's stubbornness, he knew he had to act swiftly to address the situation before it escalated further. Sending someone to apologize to Qiao Xian was a necessary step to mitigate the potential repercussions on their business. In the face of Xiao Yunduan's influence and power, it was essential for the Fan family to navigate the situation carefully. Failure to do so could result in dire consequences for their livelihood and reputation. Therefore, despite the internal disagreements and tensions within the family, First Old Master Fan remained resolute in his determination to find a solution and protect the family's interests. Fan Rian's insistence on not going to apologize added more tension to the already strained situation. Her tears and accusations only fueled the frustration of her family members, who were growing increasingly exasperated with her behavior. Realizing that their attempts to reason with her were futile, the two old masters of the Fan family resorted to stern measures, threatening to physically compel her to fulfill her obligation. This ultimatum left Fan Ruyan feeling trapped and helpless, further intensifying her emotional turmoil. Desperate for support, Fan Ruyan sought solace from her mother, hoping for intervention. However, to her dismay, the family's servants intervened, preventing her from seeking refuge with Old Lady Fan and effectively isolating her from potential support. In this volatile atmosphere, tensions ran high, and the resolution of the conflict seemed increasingly elusive. Fan Ruyan's realization of her brother's seriousness struck her deeply, prompting a surge of shock, anger, and resentment. Her cries and accusations were fueled by a sense of betrayal and abandonment, as she felt her brothers had prioritized their wives over their own family. For the brothers, these accusations were not entirely new. They had heard similar complaints from Fan Ruyan in the past, but they had dismissed them as mere grievances. However, in this moment, they couldn't help but wonder if there was truth to her words. The weight of Fan Ruyan's accusations pierced through their hearts, leaving them feeling a chilling sense of realization. They began to question whether their past efforts to support and protect her had been in vain, and whether their kindness had indeed been taken for granted. Chapter 1863. Seeing Gustav Fan Ruyan reluctantly bowed her head, feeling the weight of resentment heavy upon her shoulders. Accompanied by First Madame Fan, she trudged toward the backyard gate of the state office. Though the entrances were unguarded, Qiao Xian's indifferent demeanor made their passage tense. As First Madame Fan exchanged pleasantries with Qiao Xian, Fan Ruyan's countenance remained clouded with distress. Ignoring her sister-in-law's attempts to prompt her, she trailed behind with a sullen expression. Internally, First Madame Fan seethed with frustration. She recognized Fan Ruyan's ploy to manipulate her into speaking on her behalf, a tactic she found repulsive. Determined to reveal the truth to her patriarch, First Madame Fan resolved to confront the situation head-on. With a forced smile masking her irritation, she gently nudged Fan Ruyan forward, her voice laced with feigned congeniality. Remember your plea at home? You implored me to accompany you and extend apologies to Madame Xiao. Yet here you stand silent. Why this sudden reticence? Caught off guard, Fan Ruyan shot a brief, accusatory glare at her sister-in-law. She begrudgingly faced Qiao Xian, swallowing her pride. Madame Xiao, please accept my sincerest apologies for my misguided actions the other day. I regret my words in defense of Mrs. Guan, which undoubtedly caused you distress. Silence. Qiao Xian interjected, her voice dripping with disdain. What exactly do you think you're accomplishing here? Are you here to offer apologies, or to cast aspersions on my character? Do you take me for a fool, attempting to deceive me with hollow words? Madam Xiao, please, you've misunderstood. First Madam Fan interjected desperately, attempting to defuse the escalating tension. She's simply not eloquent. We sincerely came to offer our apologies today. Please forgive us. Sincerity. Xiao Xian scoffed. Your sincerity is as empty as your words. Take your gifts and leave. I won't entertain such insincere apologies. Li Xiao, escort our guests out, she commanded coldly. Madam Xiao, please reconsider €1. First Madam Fan pleaded. But her words fell on deaf ears as Li Xia and Li Qiu ushered them out, their expressions reflecting their displeasure. Humiliated and enraged, First Madam Fan couldn't contain her fury any longer. As they boarded the carriage, her frustration boiled over, and she delivered a resounding slap to Fan Ruyan's cheek. Fan Ruyan recoiled in shock, her eyes wide with disbelief. €1, enough. First Madam Fan snapped, her finger pointed accusingly. This is all you're doing. If harm befalls the Fan family, it's because of your reckless words. You've brought nothing but chaos upon us. I knew this day would come. Fan Ruyan winced as she clutched her stinging cheek, her gaze fixated on First Madam Fan with seething resentment. Once, she would have erupted in fury, retaliating against First Madam Fan with all her might. Yet today, an inexplicable restraint held her back. This newfound inhibition only fueled the flames of hatred burning within her. Observing Fan Ruyan's smoldering glare, First Madam Fan's anger flared even hotter. With another forceful blow, she spat out coldly. You dare to hate me? What right do you have? You, the very source of the Fan family's troubles. Fan Ruyan's trembling intensified, torn between her raging impulses and a newfound fear. The echoes of her inner turmoil reverberated, screaming for vengeance, yet she couldn't muster the courage to act upon them. She was paralyzed by her own apprehension, her impulses silenced by a chilling dread. Chapter 1864. The Fan family is indeed dead. First Madam Fan paid no heed to Fan Ruyan's protests as she retreated to the safety of the mansion. She promptly instructed her trusted servant to escort Fan Ruyan back to her quarters and ensure she remained there. Fuming with indignation, Fan Ruyan attempted to voice her grievances to her mother, but her resolve faltered. Who are you to confine me like this? You're nothing but a conniving, malicious woman. First Madam Fan's smirk held a chilling edge. I am the matriarch of the Fan family, the wife of the eldest son. I granted you leniency, but don't mistake it for weakness. What entitlement do you have to raise your voice against me? A malicious woman like you has no right to lecture me. Your lack of manners is appalling. You dare €1. First Madam Fan's retort was cut short as she motioned for the servants to remove Fan Ruyan. Escort her away and ensure she's kept in check. If you fail, don't expect any leniency from me. The servants, startled by the exchange, swiftly complied. They understood that despite Fan Ruyan's status, First Madam Fan held the authority as the rightful mistress of the Fan family. Meanwhile, First Madam Fan approached First Old Master Fan with a somber expression, recounting the events with a sense of dismay. Upon hearing her account, First Old Master Fan's temper flared. He couldn't help but question his decision to allow Fan Ruyan to apologize. It seemed she had transcended mere stubbornness and ventured into sheer folly. How could they possibly save face for Madame Xiao? Li Xia and Li Qiu fumed in the east courtyard of the prefect's residence, their voices laced with indignation. Xiao Xian's smile was tinged with satisfaction. It appears the downfall of the Fan family is inevitable. With Fan Ruyan's abrasive demeanor, it was no surprise how many enemies she had accrued over the years. She seemed destined for comeuppance. The Fan family, though esteemed in An's province, was not without its transgressions. Their reputation for fairness was dubious, especially with Fan Ruyan's involvement. Xiao Yunduan and Xiao Xian felt little remorse about taking action against them. Their vendetta against the Fan clan would serve as a cautionary tale. In contrast, Mrs. Guan, despite her own troublesomeness, exercised more discretion. Following the banquet debacle, she wisely refrained from stirring further trouble. Too intimidated to confront the Fan family directly, she opted to keep her distance. Without solid evidence, her grievances would likely fall on deaf ears. Neither Qiao Xian nor Xiao Yinduan could intervene on her behalf, and Mrs. Jia remained steadfast in her own convictions. Without irrefutable proof, Mrs. Guan's plight remained unresolved. In plain terms, the lawsuit was a mess, mired in ambiguity and subjectivity. Its outcome hinged solely on the whims of the higher-ups. Mrs. Guan could only begrudgingly swallow her pride, seething with both anger and despair. A bracelet worth 400 taels of silver, discarded in a fit of rage, served as a painful reminder of her folly. The ensuing humiliation and frustration left her empty-handed. She dared not confide in her old master, fearing another round of reprimands. In her desperation, Mrs. Guan harbored hopes for the Fan family's supremacy over the mountain bandits. If they prevailed, Xiao and Madame Xiao would be rendered powerless, and Mrs. Jia would lose her influence. However, Mrs. Jia and her husband's lack of foresight astounded her. How long could Xiao remain as the prefect? Their future in An's province was uncertain, with no contingency plan in place. Unexpectedly, Fan Ruyan humbled herself the following day, kneeling at the back office entrance in a state of contrition. Chapter 1865. Sincerity. Despite the back office entrance being a secluded spot, Fan Ruyan's kneeling quickly drew a crowd, their whispers and gestures fueling her growing embarrassment and resentment. Her emotions churned within her, oscillating between fury and frustration. She hadn't anticipated this outcome. Her brother's indifference cut her deeply. Upon receiving the unexpected report, Qiao Xian summoned Fan Ruyan, expressing surprise at her apparent sincerity. Rare indeed. I hadn't expected such earnestness from Mrs. Bai, Qiao Xian remarked, her tone measured. Yet, beneath the surface, skepticism lingered. Fan Ruyan's abrupt change of heart seemed suspicious. Was her family pressuring her? First Madame Fan, and the others were certainly capable of such manipulation. To Fan Ruyan, Qiao Xian's words felt like a taunt, a reminder of her defeat at the hands of her adversaries. The urge to lash out surged within her, but she swallowed it back, recalling her brother's aloof demeanor and icy words. It was my fault before. I owe you an apology, Fan Ruyan began, her voice tinged with contrition. This time I sincerely apologize. Please forgive me. Qiao Xian regarded her with a cool gaze, her response measured. I can discern sincerity, Mrs. Bai. Today you have shown respect, and that is a form of sincerity. Acknowledging your mistakes is commendable. But be mindful of your actions and words in the future. Another misstep will have consequences. Qiao Xian remained seated as Fan Ruyan knelt, enduring the humiliation of her reprimand in silence. Her fists clenched tightly as she hung her head in resignation. Feeling a simmering indignity, Fan Ruyan interpreted Qiao Xian's words as a tacit agreement to her chastisement. But it was too much. Qiao Xian's smile was indifferent as she dismissed Fan Ruyan. Enough. Rise and depart. This matter is concluded. Take your gift with you. It matters little to me. Without a word, Fan Ruyan complied and exited, escorted by Li Qiu. His demeanor, however, was frosty as he issued a thinly veiled warning. Our madam is merciful and compassionate. Another wouldn't have let you off so easily. Mrs. Bai, why the hostility? Isn't it ill-fated? Fan Ruyan's glare bore into Lycius, her patience wearing thin. Why should she tolerate the judgment of a mere servant? Lycius' sneer only stoked her ire. And who are you to judge me? The Xiao family's decorum is hardly impeccable. Mrs. Bai, spare us your lectures. You who showed disrespect to our madam have no right to dictate decorum. We as servants are obliged to uphold her honor. You, on the other hand, lack the standing to critique the Xiao family's upbringing. Your previous apology speaks volumes about your own manners, or lack thereof. Anger flared in Fan Ruyan's eyes. You dare speak to me in such a manner? A mere servant. Mrs. Bai, I implore you to reconsider. What authority does someone lacking propriety possess to criticize others? Your disrespect towards our madam cannot be ignored, and as servants, it is our duty to address it. You are hardly qualified to assess the upbringing of the Xiao family. While you may have forgotten the demeanor of your previous apology, we remember it vividly. Your own conduct leaves much to be desired, Mrs. Bai, Liqiu admonished sternly. Fan Ruyan seethed with rage. Fine, just fine. Today, I've seen their true colors. Storming out of the prefect's office, she maintained a frigid exterior despite the turmoil within. Returning to the Fan family compound, she retreated to her quarters, dismissing the servants and collapsing onto her bed in tears. She loathed it all. Her brother's callousness cut her to the core. Her two sister-in-laws harbored disdain for her all these years, yet she remained oblivious. But what stung the most was Madame Xiao's deliberate humiliation, exacerbated by her brother and sister-in-law's insistence on her acceptance of such degradation. Chapter 1866. Battle in the Giant Rock Gorge. Anne's province wasn't a place they should linger. Yet circumstances compelled them to remain. Fan Ruyan's tears flowed unabated, fueling her deep-seated hatred. As her anguish intensified, a glimmer of ruthlessness sparked in her eyes. She clenched her fists so tightly that her sharp nails threatened to pierce her skin, yet she remained oblivious to the pain. Counting her private funds, Fan Ruyan withdrew 1,000 taels of silver from her stash. After deliberation, she set aside 500 taels along with 2 thumbnail-sized rubies, still unmounted. A chilling smile tugged at her lips. Surely this sum was sufficient to procure a life? Furthermore, with Lord Xiao's unyielding stance against the bandits, their retaliation was inevitable. By expediting their attack with additional funds, she hoped for the demise of Xiao Yunduan and Xiao Xian. At least one of Thema Fan Ruyan swiftly dispatched her funds to the key figures of the Tiger Head tribe. Their selection was deliberate, as it was common knowledge in Anne's prefecture that the tribe's second-in-command had suffered significant losses at the hands of Prefect Xiao's constables. Once the items were delivered, the nanny relayed to the Tiger Head tribe that they had been received with satisfaction, and Fan Ruyan's request was acknowledged. This brought her some semblance of relief. Fan Ruyan's actions were underhanded, a deceitful ploy. Meanwhile, a convoy of provisions gathered from Liangshan town was already forming a lengthy procession, escorted by Sun Bai and Sun Qian from Liangshan town to the city of Anne's prefecture. The 3 villages eagerly awaited their chance to strike Euro in the Giant Rock Gorge. The ensuing battle was unexpectedly fierce. What they had perceived as a primary target turned out to be mere bait. They were the prey, unaware of the predator lurking in the Shadao. The alliance between the Min family tribe, Liuhe Fort, and Tiger Head tribe was formidable. Their objective was clear: to humble the haughty Lord Prefect and shatter his confidence, rendering his authority a mockery. Their combined forces, numbering over 100 strong, posed a significant threat. Despite Xiao Yunduan's skilled constables, they were outnumbered and outmatched. Aware of the ineptitude of the bailiffs in Anne's province, the 3 villages believed victory would be swift once they overpowered or eliminated Xiao Yunduan's constables. However, their expectations were shattered upon reaching the Giant Rock Gorge. Instead of a triumphant slaughter, they encountered a living nightmare. This battle became an indelible stain on the reputation of the 3 villages. Despite their meticulous planning and caution, they underestimated the strength and resilience of their opponents. The bailiffs proved to be a formidable force, quickly regrouping and coordinating their efforts against the attackers. Despite being outnumbered, they held their ground, forming defensive formations and countering every assault. Even more disconcerting were the unknown experts among the bailiffs, whose ferocity and precision surpassed anything the attackers had encountered before. In the heat of battle, they found themselves outmatched and overwhelmed, their every move ruthlessly countered. Chapter 1867. Wild and arrogant, this time proved markedly different from their previous encounter. The members of the Tiger Head tribe were stunned, realizing they had underestimated their opponents before and had been caught off guard once again. But there was more to their shock. Who was that masked expert? Their presence had caught them completely unawares, leaving them utterly unprepared. The bandits of the 3 strongholds, already shaken by the intensity of the battle, found themselves dumbfounded. When had these newcomers entered in Zhuzhou? How had they gone unnoticed? The palpable aura of battle prowess emanating from these individuals surpassed even that of seasoned mountain bandits like themselves. They had the air of seasoned warriors, hardened by countless battles on the battlefield. These were no ordinary bailiffs or martial artists. They were soldiers, veterans of the battlefield. The bandits, initially surprised, now felt genuine terror. What formidable force had they provoked? It became evident why Xiao Yunduan exuded such audacity and pride. As their comrades fell around them, the remaining mountain bandits dared not continue the fight. With panicked whistles, they scattered and fled. Their escape, however, was short-lived. Ambushed along their route, they found themselves facing a small but skilled group of adversaries. Despite their best efforts, the bandits were swiftly overwhelmed and scattered in defeat. At the conclusion of the battle, only a scant dozen managed to stagger back to their village, their ranks decimated and their spirits shattered. Panic and fear gripped every survivor, their sorry state a testament to the ferocity of the conflict. Second in charge Chao, esteemed leader of the Tiger Head tribe, fell victim to the chaotic flurry of swords. The third in charge of the Min family tribe and the second in command of Liuhe Fort were apprehended by the officials, while the remaining small leaders who failed to escape met their end on the battlefield. As the defeated soldiers retreated in disarray, the leaders of the three villages convened in the intermediate Tiger Head tribe, nearest to the giant rock gorge. Eager anticipation filled the air as they awaited news of the battle's outcome, their hearts buoyed by hope. Unexpectedly, they received shocking news that made them feel as if they were in a dream. It was like a bolt from the blue. Everyone was stunned by this news. So much so that his eyes and mouth were wide open, and he stood there in a daze for a long time. Second brother, how is it possibly a Euro? I don't believe it. How can that dog official's subordinate be so capable? The third in charge of Tiger Head tribe shouted angrily with a pale face. He suddenly grabbed a man who had escaped and punched him twice. He grabbed him and asked sternly. Then he was scared out of his wits. He stuttered and trembled, but he did not dare to lie a Euro. There was no way he could lie about such a thing. In the end, the third in charge kicked him away dumbfounded. The others weren't any better. The atmosphere in the rough intermediate hall was oppressive, angry, and sad. How dare you? If I don't take revenge, the heavens won't tolerate it. Revenge. Revenge. Everyone was furious. After a round of cursing, the third in charge of Tiger Head tribe angrily wanted to bring people down the mountain to take revenge. It was not easy for everyone to persuade him. Of course, revenge was imperative. However, the challenge lay in devising a plan for vengeance. Moreover, with members of the Min family tribe and Liuhe Fort captured and imprisoned in the state government prison, their priority was their rescue. They needed to secure their release before seeking revenge. Otherwise, if their enemies decided to retaliate by harming or killing the captives, their efforts would be in vain. The third in charge of Tiger Head tribe wore a grim expression. Though reluctant, he had no choice but to heed the necessity of saving their comrades. Given that this operation was a joint effort among the three clans, he couldn't act unilaterally. Furthermore, both the Min family tribe and Liuhe Fort held greater power than Tiger Head tribe, making it unwise to provoke them unnecessarily. Chapter 1868. Afraid of taking action, the third in charge of the Tiger Head tribe seethed with resentment and fury. I believe the dog officials will undoubtedly use them as bait. How do we rescue this individual? Storm the prison? I won't object, no matter what course of action you propose. His words dripped with bitterness and ire, causing the faces of everyone present to darken. Storming the prison was out of the question. The defenses at the giant rock gorge were meticulously laid out, and their forces had been decimated in their previous attempt. They couldn't even dream of infiltrating enemy territory. The recent defeat had been devastating, particularly for the Tiger Head tribe, which had already suffered significant losses before. Second in charge Chao's retaliatory expedition had only worsened their plight, costing him his life and leaving only 2 survivors from the tribe. With more than 2/3 of their elite warriors gone, the notion of breaking into the prison was ludicrous. Despite their reluctance to accept it, they had to acknowledge their limitations. Their actions knew no bounds. While avenging the fallen second-in-charge was a daunting task, their initial response was brutal and easy. A spree of massacre and pillage. They didn't dare breach the walls of An's city or confront Xiao Yunduan directly, but unarmed villagers were fair game in their eyes. To them, the villages were mere lambs waiting to be slaughtered. They could take lives at whim, as many as they pleased, with the government powerless to stop them. Their violence and plunder knew no bounds. Yet they made sure to leave a few villagers alive, spinning a tale of retribution against the lord of the prefect. They blamed him for the calamity, citing his vicious actions against their brethren as justification for the villagers' suffering and demise. For years, peace had prevailed. But with the arrival of the lord of the prefect, disaster followed. They argued that to reclaim tranquility, the lord of the prefect must be driven away. Otherwise, unless he possessed the means to eradicate them all, they would endure endless torment. A cycle of harassment, pillage and bloodshed. The specter of revenge would be looming over every resident of An's provincia. Should such an atrocity occur, those displaced citizens would undoubtedly harbor deep animosity towards Xiao Yunduan, leaving him in a precarious position. In response, influential families would clandestinely unite, potentially preventing Xiao Yunduan from assuming the role of prefect altogether. He might face severe censure and accusations of recklessness, accused of disrupting the delicate local equilibrium without considering the consequences. His eagerness to make a mark had led to a catastrophic loss of life and untold suffering. Yet, amidst the chaos, survivors from the Min family tribe and Liuhe fort languished in captivity. Should the Tiger Head tribe unleash their vengeance upon the populace, these captives would surely suffer as well. A scenario intolerable to the Min family tribe and Liuhe fort. The Tiger Head tribe couldn't afford such Machiavellian schemes. The leader of the Tiger Head tribe sneered with sinister intent. We have options aplenty. With careful planning, not only can we rescue our kin, but we may also exact retribution upon that vile official. Didn't that official recently welcome a son into the world? Perhaps we should visit his wife and child with our wrath. Brother Qing, what strategy do you propose? Waste no time in enlightening us, implored the Min family's leader. Chapter 1869. Method. Brother Qing spoke up. That woman from the Fan family reached out to us just 2 days ago. Let's seek her out once more. And Deputy Prefect Guan is known to be approachably a. His words left everyone stunned. But gradually, their eyes sparkled with understanding. The news of the bloody skirmish at Giant Rock Gorge quickly permeated An's prefecture city. While the common folk rejoiced, the various families trembled in fear, resigned to accepting the grim reality. Among them, those who had once dallied with the mountain bandits in clandestine dealings felt a shiver of apprehension, like birds startled by the twang of a bowstring. They were plagued by deep unease, fearing a resurgence of their past entanglements. Previously, they hadn't dared to underestimate the lord of the prefect, recognizing his capabilities and refraining from provoking him lightly. Now, their reverence for him swelled from the depths of their souls. Yet, the most rattled by these events were the members of the Fan family. First Old Master Fan and Second Old Master Fan possessed intimate knowledge of the situation, and were gripped by intense fear. Even Old Lady Fan, typically stubborn and eager to undermine Xiao Yunduan, remained conspicuously silent on the matter. Fan Rian never imagined that the Tiger Head tribe would come knocking at her door. They tasked her with arranging for Madame Xiao to leave the city and notify them once the date was confirmed. Fan Ruyan felt a twinge of fear. While she wished ill upon Xiao Xian, she balked at direct involvement in such matters. She had already expended considerable sums when initially declining their proposition. Having paid the Tiger Head tribe, she expected them to fulfill their end of the bargain. Why should she be dragged into this personally? Yet, could she reason with the Tiger Head tribe? By willingly engaging with them, she had unwittingly entangled herself, akin to crossing the Rubicon and now seeking to backtrack. But this wasn't her decision to make. The tribe employed both subtle persuasion and coercive tactics. Refusal might invite dire consequences. Even as a member of the prestigious Fan family, one of the region's 3 major clans. She recognized the tribe's ability to deal with an ordinary individual like herself. Fan Ruyan was both shocked and incensed, yet she dared not defy the Tiger Head tribe's demands. Only now did she grasp the formidable force she had provoked. Initially, she had rationalized the bandits' actions as born of necessity, believing them to possess innate goodness. But now, faced with their coercion, she felt a pang of regret, wishing ill upon Xiaoxian. Forced by the tribe's pressure, Fan Ruyan humbled herself, reaching out to reconcile with her sister-in-law and second sister-in-law. First Madame Fan and second Mrs. Fan were taken aback, but soon recognized her newfound contrition. Though her demeanor remained somewhat awkward, it marked a significant improvement. Previously, she would never have initiated such gentle and polite conversation with them. Feeling both relieved and moved, the 2 madams of the Fan family contemplated how they could have altered their approach years ago, realizing that persuasion, not confrontation, might have been more effective. Their sister-in-law's lack of repentance and escalating recklessness had dragged the Fan clan towards an irreversible path of ruin. Having made amends with her sister-in-laws, Fan Ruyan seized the opportunity to extend an invitation to Xiaoxian. I admit fault for the incident at the banquet. It was a grave mistake, and I deeply regret its consequences. Chapter 1870. Knowing her mistake. In all our years, the Fan family has never encountered such a situation. The Bright Moon Villa in the southern suburbs boasts picturesque landscapes, perfect for leisurely activities. I wish to extend an invitation to Madame Xiao and a few other madams to enjoy the scenery. It's also an opportunity for me to offer my sincere apologies to Madame Xiao and mend any grievances between us. Sister-in-laws, I implore your assistance in this matter. It's for the betterment of our Fan family. The 2 Madame Fans harbored no suspicions upon hearing this proposal. Upon reflection, they deemed it a splendid idea. First Madame Fan in particular nodded with genuine agreement. Absolutely. Though I hesitate to admit it, we must tread carefully around Lord Xiao and Madame Xiao. Consider the events at Giant Rock Gorge. Hundreds of bandits fell to Lord Xiao's forces. Their leader is either dead or incarcerated. Only a handful managed to flee. Those bandits were formidable, yet Lord Xiao proved even more formidable. It would be unwise to provoke him. Madame Xiao has endured much from our family. It's imperative that you extend a sincere apology during this outing. Let's hope Madame Xiao is merciful and refrains from targeting our Fan family in the future. Feeling a twinge of guilt, Fan Ruyan dared not dispute First Madame Fan's counsel. She offered a forced smile and humbly acknowledged her lesson learned. Seeing Fan Ruyan's newfound humility, First Madame Fan was greatly pleased and decided to treat her with kindness. Fan Ruyan was ecstatic and wasted no time in urging First Madame Fan to set a date for the gathering in the coming days. With the weather being favorable, she emphasized the importance of not delaying the arrangements. First Madame Fan readily agreed. The following day, she approached Xiaoxian in the backyard of the state office, extending the invitation with a warm smile. She invited Xiaoxian to join them at the Bright Moon Villa in the southern suburbs in 2 days' time. The weather is delightful, perfect for a leisurely outing. Our estate boasts splendid scenery, and I invite Madame Xiao to experience it firsthand. Additionally, I wish to express my sincerest apologies for the incident at the banquet. I also hope Madame Xiao will grant us the opportunity to sketch together. Xiaoxian graciously accepted the invitation with a smile, assuring her presence. First Madame Fan was elated. Showering Xiaoxian with compliments, she departed with a contented smile. Since the harrowing events at Giant Rock Gorge, numerous ladies had come to pay their respects to Xiaoxian. She could discern a palpable shift in their attitudes towards her, marked by newfound respect and admiration. In the past, politeness may have been merely superficial, but now it emanated from the depths of their hearts and bones. Lixia, Liqiu, and the others rejoiced for their old master and madam. Their old master's competence surpassed mere appearances, rendering superficial displays obsolete. They dared anyone to belittle their madam. Henceforth upon Xiao Yunduan's return for lunch, Qiao Xian relayed first Madame Fan's invitation to venture outside the city for scenic enjoyment, and a visit to their estate. Xiao Yunduan's expression soured. The Fan family knows no bounds. Inviting you out of the city for a leisurely excursion euro, I can't fathom their intentions. Don't entertain it. His wife wasn't naive. Even within the city limits, Xiao Yunduan couldn't assert complete safety, let alone venture beyond its walls. Having decisively quashed the village's arrogance this time, inflicting heavy losses and debilitating their strength, he knew they would harbor intense animosity. Chapter 1871. Apologize and treatment. Now was the time for strict vigilance, raising their guard to the utmost level. They couldn't afford to let their defenses waver in the slightest. Xiao Yunduan was adamant about safeguarding his wife. Having tasted the anguish of almost losing her once, he refused to endure it again. I don't trust the Fan family's intentions. Let's not be swayed. Bright Moon Villa can wait. Well, go wherever you wish after we've dealt with the bandits, he declared, a smile on his lips. Inwardly, Qiao Xian sighed. She yearned to accept the invitation. Even her husband's caution couldn't deter this opportunity that had presented itself a euro on the day of the giant rock gorge incident. She had fervently wished to go. Disguised, who would recognize her as the prefect's wife? With her presence, victory would have been assured, and none of the enemy would have escaped. No one would slip through her grasp. But she couldn't risk it. As the prefect's wife, venturing to such places was out of the question. Thus, she could only await news anxiously in the government office alongside Xiao Yunduan, who shared her apprehension. Thankfully, her hopes weren't dashed euro yet. This time, an opportunity had presented itself directly to Xiao Yunduan's doorstep. Naturally, he felt compelled to seize it. Qiao Xian tugged at Xiao Yunduan's sleeves, pleading, "Husband, please let me go. I can have Yi accompany us with some men. Those mountain bandits won't stand a chance if they dare to show themselves. And with prisoners in the state office's jail, they wouldn't dare to make a move. Come on, let's see if the Fan family is human or ghost." Xiao Yunduan's brow furrowed. No, it's too perilous. There's undoubtedly something amiss with the Fan family's invitation. Stop insisting. I won't allow you to take such a risk. Xiao Yunduan couldn't shake the feeling that the Fan family's invitation harbored ulterior motives. Xiao Yunduan couldn't afford to believe that the Fan family's intentions were purely benevolent. In a place like An's province, trusting all the prominent families was a risk he couldn't take. Anyone could have been in league with the mountain bandits, driven by coercion or fear of past grievances resurfacing. Qiao Xian longed to confide in him about her unique abilities, but she held back. The prospect was too daunting. She didn't want her husband to view her differently from now on. Despite Qiao Xian's pleading and various attempts to sway him, Xiao Yunduan remained steadfast in his refusal to let her go. Disappointment and discontent clouded Qiao Xian's expression. Xiao Yunduan, torn between amusement and frustration, embraced her tenderly, attempting to console her. Darling, I promise to accompany you on a trip next spring, when the centaurea blossoms and the landscapes are resplendent. Isn't that scenery more enticing? I've already devised a plan to apprehend the remaining mountain bandits before the new year. They won't linger until then. Just be patient. Qiao Xian was at a loss for words. Was her disappointment solely due to missing out on the scenery? It wasn't merely about that, though she did enjoy venturing into the mountains in search of treasures and game. It was something more profound. She yearned to share his burdens and actively contribute to significant endeavors. It felt like an immense waste to sideline her talents. Xiao Yunduan had confidence in Yi's prowess. With a handful of skilled followers and in the Fan family's territory, he doubted the Fan family would openly collude with the mountain bandits. With proper precautions, he believed nothing would go amiss. Chapter 1872. Secretly going unable to sway Xiao Yunduan, Qiao Xian resigned herself to taking action first and informing him later. With Xiao Yunduan preoccupied by the ongoing efforts to capture the remaining bandits and maintain order in An's city, The government office buzzed with tension and urgency. Countless discussions and meetings filled the days. Hence, Xiao Xian instructed the nanny to look after her son, claiming she was going shopping in the streets. In reality, she departed the city with Mian Mian and Ah Yi, heading for Bright Moon Villa. While bringing Ah Yi along wasn't paramount, it would undoubtedly reassure her husband if he knew. Bright Moon Villa bustled with activity that day. Early in the morning, first Madame Fan and her sister-in-law, Fan Ruyan, arrived with their daughters in tow. Despite having meticulously prepared and even hosted a banquet to extend their apologies to Xiao Xian, they remained vigilant, lest any oversight sour her mood once more. For what if Xiao Xian construed any misstep as deliberate? They couldn't afford to tarnish their reputation. Despite their fatigue and worries, they remained committed to executing their tasks flawlessly. Throughout the morning, Fan Ruyan drifted in a daze, her mind wandering aimlessly. At one point, second Mrs. Fan had to urge her to speak louder, startling her in the process. Reflecting on this later, both first Madame Fan and second Mrs. Fan berated themselves for failing to notice Fan Ruyan's obvious abnormality. They assumed her apprehension stemmed from concerns about Xiao Xian's acceptance of their apology. Realizing their earlier strictness might have instilled fear in Fan Ruyan, they felt a pang of guilt and sought to comfort her. "Sister, don't fret. Madame Xiao will surely accept your genuine apology. We're by your side, and you won't face this alone." That's right. Madame Xiao's agreement to come signifies her lack of intent to oppose the Fan family. "I won't say much, but ever since Madame Xiao arrived in An's province, she hasn't exhibited any domineering behavior or deliberately made things difficult for anyone. Except for Mrs. Guan, of course. She brought it upon herself." Exactly a Euro Fan Ruyan found no comfort in their words. She felt her sister-in-laws were too noisy, and their remarks made her feel like she was scolding a locust for no reason. Growing increasingly distraught, she responded with nonchalance, trying to calm her mind with casual indifference. Around 10:30, Xiao Xian arrived at Bright Moon Villa. The carriage pulled directly into the manor, prompting first Madame Fan and others to rush out to greet them. All the guests, aside from the Fan family hostesses, gathered to welcome Xiao Xian with smiles, displaying respect in their friendly demeanor. Noticing this, Xiao Xian felt a mixture of amusement and emotion. She was even prouder Euro. Her husband's influence was so significant that he could finally command the respect of these people. However, this was just the beginning. The ordeal was far from over. This was the most critical moment, with no room for error. Chapter 1873. Can't dislike it, can't kill it. Xiao Xian, however, harbored a wish for the banquet to be less enjoyable, perhaps even attracting more bandits Euro upon catching sight of Xiao Xian. A surge of both old and fresh resentment flooded Fan Ruyan's heart, momentarily eclipsing her anxiety. She pressed her lips together tightly, shooting Xiao Xian a frigid glare before bowing her head and dutifully trailing behind first Madame Fan. That was the extent of her efforts. She couldn't vie for Xiao Xian's favor like the opportunists. To avoid complicating matters further, she chose silence. First Madame Fan greeted her with a smile and a discreet wink, signaling for her to impress Madame Xiao. But her sister-in-law seemed too rattled by recent events to notice the gesture, nervously keeping her gaze lowered. First Madame Fan couldn't afford to be too overt, fearing it might backfire or require coercion. Any verbal misstep due to nerves could be disastrous. Xiao Xian saw through Fan Ruyan's facade immediately. Fan Ruyan's demeanor remained unchanged, merely concealed beneath a veneer of composure. Xiao Xian hadn't anticipated her audacity in seeking favors from a tiger. She presumed Fan Ruyan still harbored animosity, but lacked the courage to express it, embodying the proverbial, "I can't shake her off even if I dislike her." That was all. Xiao Xian paid little heed to such matters. As long as Fan Ruyan refrained from confrontations and avoided stirring trouble intentionally, she could easily ignore her existence altogether. Bright Moon Villa nestled in the foothills, its backdrop adorned with a peculiar peak. Upon opening its doors, one was greeted by a vast lake, its surface glimmering under the moonlight. A picturesque spot for moon gazing. Hence, The Fan family bestowed upon it the name Bright Moon Villa. Currently, the mountain foliage flaunted hues of red, yellow, orange-red and orange-yellow, presenting a vibrant and splendid spectacle. Large patches of wild chrysanthemums adorned the lakeside, their diminutive blooms resembling copper coins yet unfurling in succession like celestial stars. Despite their simple white and golden hues, they exuded an exceptional beauty amidst the verdant mountains and crystalline waters. During this time of year, the sky boasted an advanced clarity with faint clouds drifting lazily. The autumn breeze carried a refreshing coolness, and though the sun shone brightly, its rays were not searing. It was inherently uplifting to bask in the ambience of the lakeside. Accompanied by Qiao Xian, first Madame Fan and her companions ventured to the shore. Though outings were rare for the ladies, they reveled in the moment, exchanging laughter and conversation, animating the lakeside with their joy. A pavilion stood nearby, recently refurbished. First Madame Fan extended an invitation for Qiao Xian to join her for tea and conversation within its confines. Enthralled by the picturesque scenery, Qiao Xian expressed her delight and encouraged others to explore freely, opting to take a leisurely stroll. Observing her contentment, First Madame Fan eagerly began to highlight the villa's finest attractions to her guest. Qiao Xian refrained from causing embarrassment, much to the relief of First Madame Fan. However, her sister-in-law remained dissatisfied. The sister-in-law, who had initiated the banquet with good intentions, now seemed as reticent as a mute gourd in the presence of Madame Xiao, keeping her head bowed and uttering not a word. Perhaps she was merely shy, considering her past demeanor of dominance and strong will. Such a swift change was improbable. As Qiao Xian prepared to venture off alone, Fan Ruyan's eyes sparked with a sudden idea. She pondered how to discreetly coax Qiao Xian away from the group. Little did she know, opportunity was about to present itself on a silver platter. Chapter 1874. It must be a coincidence, although Fan Ruyan knew she could find an opportunity to coax Qiao Xian away from the group later. Perhaps when they entered the manor or during a moment of privacy. It wasn't the same as acting outside the manor's confines. If anything were to happen to Qiao Xian within the manor, it would bear no connection to the Fan family, making it easier to evade blaming Euro. As she watched two young ladies accompany Qiao Xian towards the east, Fan Ruyan's satisfaction grew. She couldn't help but mutter under her breath, "They're asking for trouble." Euro. Her words barely escaped her lips when Qiao Xian turned and caught her gaze. Startled, Fan Ruyan's eyes widened in panic, feeling as if she'd been caught red-handed. But Qiao Xian merely offered a smile before departing with the two young ladies. Relieved, Fan Ruyan let out a sigh, gently patting her chest as her heart raced. What in the world? Euro. No one else had heard her words, so how could Qiao Xian have possibly heard them? It had to be a coincidence. Euro. At least, that's what Fan Ruyan tried to convince herself. Yet, despite her attempts to dismiss it, she couldn't shake off the uneasy feeling gnawing at her. Meanwhile, Qiao Xian engaged in conversation with the two ladies, savoring the scenery, while her own maids trailed behind. Activating her powers, she extended her divine senses, and soon detected a group of individuals less than 1,000 meters away. There were 8 in total, clad in nondescript cotton and peasant attire, but their furtive, bandit-like demeanor betrayed their true nature. It appeared the Fan clan was indeed up to no good. Euro. Their disregard for her husband was evident. Otherwise, why would they act so recklessly? Listening in on their conversations was unbearable. They spoke as though she was already their captive audience. Qiao Xian had no intention of wasting any more time. Maintaining the facade of enjoying the scenery, she unleashed her powers. Suddenly, the mountains trembled and the earth split open. Before the intruders could even react, they were struck unconscious by falling debris, silenced before they could comprehend what had transpired. The cacophony of falling rocks startled Qiao Xian and her companions, prompting screams that soon drew first Madame Fan and the others to the scene. "Madame Xiao, what's happening? Are you all right?" First Madame Fan's concern was palpable, fearing any further incidents might provoke Qiao Xian's wrath against the Fan family. Euro, a disastrous outcome. Nervously, Qiao Xian gestured towards the distance. We were simply admiring the scenery when a landslide occurred. We should send some people to investigate. Yi, who had been observing from afar, approached cautiously upon hearing the commotion. However, he maintained a respectful distance from the women. Upon receiving Qiao Xian's instruction, he nodded. Of course, madam. The two startled ladies, still recovering from the shock, expressed their lingering fears to Qiao Xian, who reassured them with a comforting smile. With no time to spare, First Madame Fan swiftly organized a group of servants to accompany her. Madame Xiao, landslides are not uncommon in these mountains, she reassured, hoping to allay any concerns. Chapter 1875. Instant removal. €1. It's not uncommon for soil to give way, rocks to tumble down, trees to snap, or sudden flash floods. As long as it doesn't directly affect us, no matter how tumultuous it gets, it's manageable. I didn't anticipate scaring you today. I apologize, Madame Xiao. Please forgive me. Qiao Xian shook her head with a reassuring smile. First, Madame Fan, you're not to blame. It wasn't intentional. And am not one to hold grudges. How could I fault you? Please don't apologize. Laughter rippled through the group, easing the tension. Madame Xiao's rationality and understanding were apparent to Fan Ruyan's lips twisted in a silent sneer of disdain. Who couldn't speak prettily on the surface? But who could discern their true intentions? This person had always been adept at sweet talk, like a blooming lotus. It wasn't news to anyone. Weren't these people a bit too trusting? First Madame Fan playfully chided. Madame Xiao, you truly are generous. I feel ashamed of my pettiness. The teasing banter lightened the mood further, dispelling the earlier solemnity and tension. Seizing the moment, First Madame Fan extended an invitation to Qiao Xian with a warm smile. It's almost lunchtime. Shall we head inside? The dishes may be simple, but they're made with fresh ingredients. Please join us, Madame Xiao. She harbored genuine fear of another mishap. Finding solace in the safety of the manor's area. This sentiment resonated with the group, garnering unanimous agreement. Qiao Xian with a smile remarked, exploring the wild can be intriguing, and freshness is indeed a precious commodity. First Madame Fan, your humility is commendable. We are fortunate today. However, I can't help but feel compelled to uncover the truth. Let's wait and see what transpires. Despite First Madame Fan's reluctance, Qiao Xian's insistence left her with little choice but to acquiesce. Some among the group, fueled by curiosity, opted to stay and observe. They craned their necks, whispering among themselves in anticipation. Residing in a mountain town, they were no strangers to occasional mountain collapses, often triggered by prolonged heavy rain. However, such occurrences typically had a discernible cause. Before long, two maidservants rushed over, their expressions unreadable from a distance but clearly fraught with anxiety and urgency. Did something really happen? I don't know. It looks like €1. Haven't First Madame Fan's heart skipped a beat. First Madame, something is wrong. The two maidservants finally ran over, out of breath. A collective gasp swept through the group. First Madame Fan's ire flared. Mind your manners. What's the matter? Why are you alone? Where are the others? The two maidservants stiffened, their expressions growing tense before hastily responding. There's been a massive collapse nearby. Several individuals are unconscious, some partially buried and unresponsive. The others are stationed there. Yi instructed us to inform and summon additional help. Indeed. Panic ensued. What? Unconscious individuals? How did this happen? Who ventured there? Chapter 1876. Strange man. Heavens, these €. This didn't kill anyone, right? That's horrible. Hurry up and tell us what happened. True. Qiao Xian's voice cut through the tension, commanding attention. Everyone, quiet down. First Madame Fan, dispatch servants to aid them. Yi wouldn't alarm us without cause. There must be a reason behind his actions. You too, recount everything from start to finish. Don't hold back. First Madame Fan's thoughts whirled with apprehension. She swiftly instructed the maids to summon help, then turned her gaze to the two maidservants. The assembled group fell into a hushed silence, fixating on the maidservants with unwavering attention. The two maidservants hesitated momentarily before relaying their account. As we approached, we witnessed the mountain rocks cracking, followed by a massive landslide. 8 men lay unconscious, some partially buried in the soil. It was a distressing sight. All 8 appeared to be middle-aged, clad in ordinary attire, and unfamiliar to us. It's puzzling how they ended up there. A veil of suspicion shrouded the onlookers as they subtly scrutinized First Madame Fan. The proximity of the collapse to their scenic spot raised doubts about the stranger's presence. Were these truly unrelated individuals, as the maids claimed, or was there more to the story? Who could say if they were being truthful? Luckily, Madame Xiao's own servants had accompanied them. Otherwise, if those who went over were all from the Fan family, they might have kept it under wraps. But if these individuals were indeed invited by the Fan clan, what was their intent? What did the Fan clan have in mind? Regardless, the situation felt unsettling, and it likely involved the Fan clan. Unease rippled through the group, prompting a collective desire to depart promptly. As long as the Fan clan refrained from meddling, it was tolerable. Observing the unease among the attendees, First Madame Fan couldn't help but inwardly lament. She wasn't concerned about others' opinions, but she fretted over Qiao Xian's suspicions. Madame Xiao, this is truly peculiar. We wouldn't dare deceive you. The Fan family is as unaware as you and the other ladies. Please don't worry. I'll provide you with a thorough explanation. Qiao Xian regarded her solemnly. I trust you implicitly. There's no need for explanations. Those strangers are undoubtedly up to mischief. I'll instruct Yi to escort them back for interrogation by our lord. What say you, First Madame Fan? First Madame Fan felt a lump form in her throat. Instinctively, she wanted to protest, fearing any potential implications for the Fan family. However, Qiao Xian's rationale struck a chord, and more significantly, her esteemed status left little room for dissent. Madame Xiao is absolutely correct. Entrusting this matter to the authorities for investigation is the prudent course of action. Otherwise, none of us would find peace of mind. I must apologize profusely. I never anticipated that inviting Madame Xiao for a scenic outing would lead to this unforeseen circumstance. Qiao Xian's gentle smile reassured her. It was merely an unfortunate accident. Chapter 1877. Too strange, she cast a meaningful glance at the assembled group. Once this matter is resolved, the authorities will make an official announcement. Until then, no one should engage in speculation or spread rumors. Any adverse consequences resulting from such actions will be thoroughly investigated by the government. The madams nodded in stunned agreement, swiftly heeding her directive. First Madame Fan conveyed her gratitude to Qiao Xian with a grateful glance. With matters settled, there was little reason for Qiao Xian to linger. Those who asserted that her youth precluded divorce might miss her, necessitating her return to the city for another meeting at a later date. First Madame Fan didn't dare insist on her remaining. Instead, she smiled warmly and escorted Qiao Xian to the waiting carriage. Once Qiao Xian departed, the other ladies followed suit, vacating the scene. Before long, the area was deserted. With the aid of the Fan family servants, the 8 individuals were swiftly bound and placed into a carriage. Yi then led them away. Accompanied by First Madame Fan, Second Mrs. Fan and Fan Ruyan, along with a contingent of servants, they inspected the site of the collapse. The 2 maidservants who had initially reported the incident spoke truthfully. A significant portion of the hill had indeed collapsed, leaving behind a mound of rubble and scattered vegetation. Yet, the collapse occurred on a hill abundant with soil and greenery. It seemed inexplicable that such a stable terrain would give way without cause. This is truly baffling. Fan Ruyan was tempted to seize the opportunity to disparage Qiao Xian, perhaps insinuating something along the lines of, her presence attracts misfortune. But she hesitated. Her current demeanor restrained her from such slanderous remarks. First Madame Fan and her attendants deliberated to no avail, ultimately resigning themselves to the conclusion that it was an unforeseen accident. In the wagon, Xiao Xian grappled with confusion. Could she have been mistaken? During the maidservant's explanation, she had scrutinized Fan Ruyan's reaction closely. Yet, Fan Ruyan appeared genuinely surprised and perplexed, devoid of any guilt or unease. Something didn't add up. Xiao Xian couldn't fathom that someone as transparent as Fan Ruyan could conceal her emotions so adeptly. Perhaps Fan Ruyan hadn't even considered the possibility that the unfamiliar men were mountain bandits. Upon reflection, this seemed to be the only plausible explanation. Xiao Xian chuckled in disbelief, but soon, a sigh escaped her lips as she rubbed her temples. He had left the city with such determination, catching her husband off guard, only to return and likely face his reprimand. Considering her options, Xiao Xian couldn't devise a suitable strategy to evade his scolding, so she resigned herself to her fate. As expected, upon her carriage's arrival at the state government office's backyard, her husband stood there with an inscrutable expression, hands clasped behind his back, awaiting her. Xiao Xian's scalp tingled with nerves. Mustering a smile, she greeted him. "Husband, you've been waiting for me." His response only exacerbated her anxiety. Attempting to appear composed, she flashed a bright smile. "As you can see, I've returned safely. There was an incident at Bright Moon Villa, and I swiftly discerned that something was amiss, hence my prompt return home." Chapter 1878. His lesson. Xiao Yunduan's expression tightened as Xiao Xian spoke. "Really? Should I compliment you?" he asked, his tone laced with a hint of sarcasm. No. Xiao Xian quickly shook her head, a flattering smile on her lips. "There's no need for that. I know I was wrong. I won't ever sneak out of the city again. This time, I just wanted to see what the Fan family will do, and I'll be cautious." "Cautious?" Xiao Yunduan's anger flared. "You know what kind of family the Fan family is. You know how arrogant and domineering Fan Ruyan and Old Lady Fan can be. How could you risk it? Even if you're cautious, you're stepping onto their territory. What good will that do? If something were to happen, even if she sensed danger, could she handle it? Help from afar wouldn't reach in time. The news would spread, and he wouldn't be able to rush to her aid." Just the thought made him shudder, a cold sweat breaking out. It would drive him insane. "Yes, you're here to Xiao Xian had never seen Xiao Yunduan lose his temper like this, realizing she shouldn't have provoked him, but she couldn't help herself. She tugged at Xiao Yunduan's sleeve, speaking softly. "I'm confident that with Aya's capabilities, the Fan family won't dare touch me unless they want trouble with you, the prefect lord. At most, they'll try to address the situation openly, to acknowledge the elephant in the room. Ai could whisk her away to safety in minutes." Xiao Xian attempted to explain and console Xiao Yunduan, and his expression softened slightly. Breathing a sigh of relief, Xiao Xian recognized the boundaries of her influence. She couldn't afford to joke about herself, not when her life experience was still unfolding. How could she have been so rash and thoughtless? But there was one truth she couldn't reveal: her extraordinary ability to control everything within the courtyard. Regardless of Fan Ruyan and the other schemes, she was always aware. She wouldn't allow anyone to plot against them. If she backed down, wouldn't it embolden Fan Ruyan's arrogance? It would imply that she, as the prefect's wife, feared the Fan family, which would severely disadvantage Xiao Yunduan in his struggle against them. Awareness dawned on Xiao Xian. The stakes were high, and many keen observers were watching the power struggle between the prefect and the Fan family. The outcome would shape their stance and tactics toward the prefect's office. Xiao Xian refused to be a liability. The Fan family had brazenly invited confrontation, and she intended to deliver a resounding blow. Moreover, she was determined to drive them to the brink of madness. Xiao Yunduan sighed, gently grasping her hands. "I understand you're trying to support me, my dear, but there's no need. I'm genuinely worried. I'm scared too." Xiao Xian interjected with a smile. I won't act independently anymore. Xiao Yunduan's expression softened. That's what I want to hear. Absolutely, Qiao Xian affirmed. I'll always consult with you. Xiao Yunduan paused, contemplating. He sensed there was still a lesson she needed to learn. Chapter 1879. The second day Qiao Xian was left speechless. I'm not pretending, she insisted. I just feel like resting a bit longer. Even in defeat, she refused to admit defeat. Despite his unreasonable behavior, she tried to see reason in it. Xiao Yunduan didn't argue, merely smiling. You slept from yesterday afternoon till now. Do you still want to rest? What? Qiao Xian's eyes widened. Was it already the next day? The brightness of the sun confirmed it. She realized her perception was skewed. Late autumn meant shorter days and longer nights. She had thought she slept for a significant period with the elder, but apparently not. Xiao Yunduan noticed her shock, his smile widening. Qiao Xian composed herself, refusing to give in. She couldn't let him think he'd won. So she blinked and replied calmly, I know, but I could still use a bit more rest. Wanting to say, I'm just tired and need more sleep, she changed her words, fearing it might stroke his ego too much. Xiao Yunduan chuckled softly, pinching her cheeks affectionately before enveloping her in his arms. His voice lowered, carrying a note of sternness. Promise me no more recklessness. Do you understand the danger? Think of our son and me. He had placed too much trust in her, never imagining she'd act so boldly without consulting him first. The moment he heard the news, a chilling fear gripped him, his heart plunging like it had been struck by lightning. He dared not contemplate the consequences. Those mountain bandits lacked even the fourth prince's limited restraint. If she fell into their hands, the suffering she'd endure was unimaginable. He wouldn't blame her, but he couldn't sway public opinion. And what if? What if he couldn't reach her in time? He swiftly dispatched guards and headed to Bright Moon Villa, determined to protect her without alarming her. Though his heart seethed with silent reprimand. Although he chastised himself inwardly, Xiao Yunduan couldn't bring himself to forcefully stop her from leaving the city. So he silently reproached himself. This woman dared to be so bold, and he bore some responsibility for it. Hearing his words, Qiao Xian felt a pang of guilt, her heart softening. She reached out, wrapping her arms around his waist, and nestled her head against his chest. I understand, my love. I promise, I won't put myself in harm's way. With Yi and Ben Lei by my side, along with the guards, I can ensure my safety. I couldn't bear to put you and our son at risk. I want to support you, she continued earnestly. I don't trust Fan Rian's intentions, inviting us for a meal. I just want to see what she's plotting, what the Fan family is up to. Until these matters are resolved, we won't truly be safe. I know my limits. Xiao Yunduan's touch was gentle as he stroked her hair. All right, I'll trust you from now on. But promise me you won't do something like this again, understood? He truly had no other choice. He couldn't confine her to their home and deny her freedom. Chapter 1880. Don't dare again. In that case, it was better for him to be proactive and ensure her safety by sending someone to protect her. It was far preferable to her taking such risks on her own. Qiao Xian smiled, nodding. Yes, I understand, husband. I'll heed your advice. Bah. Xiao Yunduan scoffed, not entirely convinced by her words. He reached down, playfully pinching her soft waist, and whispered, If you dare to defy me again, I'll have you confined to bed for 3 days and nights. Qiao Xian blushed, suddenly feeling self-conscious. She pushed him away, retreating under the blanket, and pouted coyly. Just go already. Independent Illinois, get up. Xiao Yunduan grinned. Are you sure? Shall I help you change first, or should I take a bath? Wife, do you want Li Xia and Li Qiu to see those marks on your body? Qiao Xian's face flushed hotter, her body turning limp. She couldn't bring herself to meet his gaze, but still managed to pout. It's all your fault. From yesterday afternoon until now. She felt utterly embarrassed as the lady of the household. This man was shameless. Wasn't he worried about being slandered behind his back? Of course not. He was the master here. Who would dare speak ill of him? Old Master seemed to have an answer for everything, or so he thought. But Xiao Xian shook her head inwardly. Xiao Yunduan smiled proudly, unfazed by any hint of shame. I'll have someone prepare a bath for me first, all right? Xiao Xian, eager for the soothing warmth of a bath, readily agreed. With her husband's persistent teasing, their bath stretched into a 4-hour affair, nearly reaching dusk. Emerging from the bath, Xiao Xian felt rejuvenated, as if a new chapter in her life had begun. Meanwhile, the Fan family, including the 2 Madame Fans and Fan Ruyan, returned to the city shortly after. Although today's gathering lacked the perfection of previous banquets, Madame Xiao had clearly signaled her willingness to reconcile with the Fan family. The first Madame Fan felt she had achieved her goal and harbored no regrets. But Fan Ruyan couldn't shake her disappointment. Unexpectedly, amidst the festivities, a mishap occurred. Madame Xiao departed early and returned to the city unharmed. How unfortunate! Fan Ruyan lamented, still unaware of the connection between the unconscious men and the bandits. She only regretted the missed opportunity. Why hadn't the bandits struck earlier? If only they had arrived earlier to snatch Xiao Xian away. Fan Ruyan never anticipated a knife at her throat in the dead of night. Don't move. I'm from the mountain. The voice belonged to one of the mountain bandits. Fan Ruyan breathed a sigh of relief, assuming him to be an ally. Why are you only here now? You said you'd snatch someone from Bright Moon Villa during the day. Xiao Xian went there today, but you didn't show Euro. Shut up. The knife pressed harder against her neck. Are you playing dumb, you wretch? The searing pain made Fan Ruyan tremble. She dared not move, her voice quivering. What do you mean, Euro, are you asking me? The man's teeth clenched, his curses venomous. 8 of our men went, none returned. Heard they were nabbed by the authorities. Did you rat us out, you filthy traitor? Chapter 1881. Interrogation. In the middle of the night, enraged, the mountain bandit stowed his knife and delivered a harsh slap to Fan Ruyan's face. His hand was rough, calloused and scarred. In his fury, he showed no mercy. The force of the blow sent half of Fan Ruyan's face recoiling, blood trickling from the corner of her mouth, her head throbbing. Suppressing a scream, she clenched her teeth, groaning as if her molars had loosened. Clutching the blanket tightly, she struggled to sit up, her voice trembling. What did you say? Her expression shifted drastically. Could it be them? What are you talking about? The man demanded. Speak. Fan Ruyan's vision blurred, nearly fainting. Fear mingled with fury. How foolish. Why hadn't she realized sooner? Who else but those mysterious men near Bright Moon Villa? Why hadn't she made the connection earlier? With trembling lips, she recounted the entire encounter to the bandit. Euro, foolish woman. The man's rage surged. He slapped her once more, his teeth clenched. Traitor! Those were our comrades. You watched them get taken by the authorities. The man seemed to favor alternating his slaps, landing one on each side of Fan Ruyan's face. Fan Ruyan had always been cautious and diligent about her skincare. Her skin, fair and delicate as tofu, couldn't bear the force of the blows. Her face reddened and swelled instantly, streaked with red, purple, and blood, a ghastly sight. Tears streamed down her face, the pain nearly rendering her unconscious. She covered her battered face, voice trembling with tears. I didn't know Euro, it's too coincidental. But Euro, the man glared at her, his expression darkening as he sneered. Crafty woman, do you take me for a fool? Such coincidences don't exist. I know the terrain near Bright Moon Villa well. Rocks don't collapse without reason. And it's implausible for all 8 to be knocked out simultaneously. Do you really expect me to believe this? The 8 men who descended the mountain were seasoned elites. The one leading the raid was the 3rd in command of the Tiger Head tribe and 2nd in command of the Liuha fort. He was the 4th in command of the Min family tribe, and led 12 others to meet them 5 kilometers away. Capturing the wife of an official's dog required utmost vigilance. They were well acquainted with the terrain, confident that the official couldn't thwart them. But this accident blindsided them. A blasted accident. Even if rocks fell, their skills would prevent everyone from passing out. This treacherous woman must be lying. Have you been colluding with the government? Did you orchestrate today's events to ensnare us? How dare you plot against me, you wretch? No. I swear I'm innocent. Fan Ruyan's heart raced with fear. I'd never betray you. If I did, would I allow myself to be captured? The officials won't spare our Fan family. Surrendering to them is out of the question. Their demise is our only hope. Your Majesty, you must believe me. The man glared at her with venom. Deep down he believed her. He cared little for the feud between the Fan clan and officials, but he trusted that Fan Ruyan, foolish as she was, lacked the courage to betray them. Chapter 1882. It's hard to get off a thief's ship unless the Fan family wanted to abandon Anne's province altogether. The man growled. Stop your excuses. I won't trust a word you say. Figure out how to lure that dog official's wife out. If you fail, I'll obliterate you. And your precious Fan family along with you. Don't think you're clever. If you dare double-cross me for a dog official, unless your family hides within the prefect's office and never steps outside, €5. No, I swear. Words mean nothing. I want action. Get up and write something. Now. Fan Ruyan hesitated. Written evidence could easily fall into the wrong hands, becoming a vulnerability. But with a knife at her throat, she had little choice. Once aboard the pirate ship, it wasn't easy to disembark unscathed. The loyal worldly's folks she thought she knew were ruthless bandits willing to wield their blades against innocents without a second thought. Fan Ruyan dared not refuse, muttering her grievances silently. With trembling hands, she penned the incriminating evidence and pressed her fingerprint. Illiterate as he was, the bandit trusted Fan Ruyan's sincerity. If she dared deceive him, her Fan family would face dire consequences. Satisfied, the bandit nonchalantly pocketed the document. He glared at Fan Ruyan, sneering. Listen up, you wretch. You have 3 days to lure that dog official's wife out of the city, by any means necessary. Fail, and you'll face my wrath. But €1 what? €1 as the bandit swaggered off into the night. Fan Ruyan collapsed to the ground, her limbs weak, hugging herself as tears flowed. Fear, anger, shock, and regret overwhelmed her, mingled with panic and despair seeping through her entire being. Exhausted from crying, she remained huddled against the bed, her mind blank. What was she to do now? Those mountain bandits were a force to be reckoned with, terrifying and ruthless. Fan Ruyan's resentment towards Qiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan festered. If not for them, she wouldn't be in this mess. They were the ones who coerced her into seeking out the mountain bandits. Yes, it was all their fault. €1 if she was suffering, she wouldn't let them off the hook either. Yes. Qiao Xian. How could she lure her out of the city? What was her plan? First Madame Fan's eyes widened incredulously. What did you say? You want to invite Madame Xiao to Qingsong Monastery to offer incense the day after tomorrow? Explain yourself. First Madame Fan couldn't fathom her sister-in-law's intentions. Was she defying Madame Xiao? Since Madame Xiao had pardoned their family, why stir up trouble? She was already apprehensive. Every time she invited Madame Xiao, something went awry. She dared not do it anymore. But her sister-in-law seemed undeterred. Fan Ruyan masked her embarrassment with a smile. Sister-in-law, I still feel uneasy. Madame Xiao might say she doesn't hold grudges, but who knows if she's just being polite. After all, we invited her to Bright Moon Villa for a scenic view and a banquet. But she left without eating lunch. €1 if she harbors resentment. Wouldn't that be €1? Chapter 1883. Treating again. So I initially thought the 15th was 2 days from now. Qingsong Monastery is renowned for its vegetarian fare, so perhaps it's best to keep the guest list to just Madame Xiao. Mrs. Jiao mentioned she's tied up at home, or else we could have extended an invitation to her as well. With a small gathering, we can enjoy the best of both worlds. Initially, Madame Fan hesitated against Fan Rian's persuasion. After pondering for a moment, she found no harm in expanding her social circle. This was how acquaintances turned into friendships. Buta Euro, will Madame Xiao agree to come Euro? To be frank, if she were in Madame Xiao's shoes, she wouldn't have accepted her own family's invitation. She will agree. Anything less and she'd be unhappy. That simply wouldn't do. Seeing her sister-in-law's puzzled expression, Fan Rian realized she was rushing things. She forced a smile. Sister-in-law, you're the matriarch of the Fan family. If Madame Xiao wishes to be a supportive spouse to Lord Xiao, she'll undoubtedly seek favor with the Fan family and honor your invitation. If you reach out to her first, she may even be eager. First Madame Fan found this reassuring. After contemplating for a moment, she smiled and said, "Indeed, fostering a good relationship with the prefect's wife would benefit our family. Very well, I shall extend the invitation tomorrow." Absolutely. Fan Rian hastily agreed with a smile. But if you're planning to invite her, why wait until tomorrow? It's still early today. Why don't we go now? It'll give Madame Xiao ample time to prepare. First Madame Fan furrowed her brow and acquiesced. Very well. Euro, initially hesitant to comply, she found herself swayed by the urgency. Yet, upon reflection, she wondered if this sudden eagerness from her sister-in-law was instigated by her mother-in-law. Why else would she be so keen on inviting Madame Xiao when she had previously opposed the idea? It must be her mother-in-law's influence. With a smile, first Madame Fan remarked, "But on the day of the ceremony, you must engage with Madame Xiao warmly and actively. We cannot afford to repeat yesterday's mistakes. If we've extended an invitation to Madame Xiao, it's imperative that we alter her perception of us entirely. Do you agree?" "Certainly, sister-in-law. I'll proceed with caution." Fan Rian nodded. Her mind focused solely on securing Qiao Xian's presence. As for the future? Well, she would deal with that when the time came. Euro, first Madame Fan couldn't help but feel a surge of pride at her words. Such foresight was a rarity. At that moment, without further delay, arrangements were set in motion. Gifts were prepared and they set off, dressed impeccably, to the state government office's courtyard to extend their invitation. Euro, Qiao Xian accepted with a smile. First Madame Fan departed, content with the outcome. Li Xia and Li Qiu exchanged worried glances. "Madam, I can't shake off this feeling that something's off about the Fan family lately." "Absolutely. Who keeps hosting endless meals like this? It's rather suspicious." "Madam, perhaps it's best if you skip the incense ceremony. I can't shake the feeling that the Fan family is up to no good. A sacred place like the temple is ripe for manipulation. It just doesn't sit right with me." Euro, Qiao Xian cast them a glance and chuckled. "You two are quite observant, aren't you? Your vigilance has certainly improved." Li Xia and Li Qiu exchanged a smile. After all these years by Madame's side, we must have picked up a thing or two, no matter how slow we were to start. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.